Chapter 352. The huge Emerald Smoke City was incomparably vast. Under the restriction of the Space Restriction Order, although Qin Hao and Qin Shui's speed was astonishing, it still took them more than an hour to step out of the south gate of Emerald Smoke City. After a while, countless cultivators of the immortal, demon, and demon realms followed Qin Hao and Qin Shui out like a huge torrent. The three guys from the South Sea Islands were originally in the lead, but they gradually calmed down and deliberately slowed down their pace, waiting for the arrival of their companions. They were not worried that Qin Hao and Qin Shui would change their minds. With such a big movement, it was already difficult to get off the horse. For the sake of face and honor, they would never withdraw. Moreover, it was such a big movement that made the three of them a little conflicted, especially when they heard the discussion of the cultivators. It made them understand that there was no way to win with numbers, according to their plan. This was something he hadn't expected. "What are you doing out here?" After stepping out of the south gate, Qin Shui, who was dressed in a blue dress and had a graceful and exquisite figure, directly came out of the state of being integrated with all things in the world without discussing with Qin Hao. She stood side by side with Qin Hao. This made Qin Hao frown slightly and ask, "If you want to fight, let's fight together. Do you want me to shrink aside? I don't think there is anyone in the incarnation realm who can be my opponent." Under the black veil, Qin Shui's beautiful face shone with a trace of pride as she said, "You don't have a guardian token. Will there be a problem with such a high-profile appearance?" Qin Hao asked. In fact, Qin Hao's actions seemed impulsive and arrogant, but it was the best choice. It caused such a big sensation, not because Qin Hao deliberately wanted to be high-profile, but because he wanted to disrupt the other party's tempo. He wanted to force them to fight with him fair and square. Only in this way could the risk factor be minimized. No matter how confident Qin Hao was, he would not blindly put himself in danger. But Qin Shui was different. She did not have a guardian token of the immortal master, but if she made such a high-profile appearance, it was difficult to guarantee that she would be targeted by masters above the primordial soul realm. At that time, even he would be helpless. This was the main reason why Qin Hao didn't want to refine the guardian order back then. This was because Qin Hao knew that once he stepped into the incarnation realm, even a half-step incarnation realm top genius would not be his opponent. At the very least, this should be the case in the Southern Sea Islands, the Western Continent, and the Eastern Continent. Furthermore, the Guardian Order restricted Essence Soul Realm experts from attacking him. What was the point of that? Where could he find life and death battles and tempering? But in the end, he still managed to temper it. The reason was simple. Even if he didn't temper himself, the news of him obtaining the Immortal Reverent Protection Token would still be announced by the limitless Immortal Palace in the cultivation world. No matter what, he couldn't get rid of this identity. Since that was the case, there was no need to go against the information in the Guardian Token. "I have my mother. She's much more useful than the Guardian Order," Qin Shui said to Qin Hao with a smile. "What's more, I still have a Guardian Order." Of course, this sentence could not be said to Qin Hao. Is this the monstrous genius known as the Immortal Tao of the Eastern Continent that only appears once in 1,000 years? He's only at the early stage incarnation realm. He's not even as good as that little beauty. Don't underestimate him. When he won first place in the Eastern Continent Immortal Tao Sect Exchange competition, he was only at the peak of the late-stage nascent soul realm. The opponent he defeated was a top genius at the peak of the late-stage incarnation realm. With his current combat strength, I'm afraid even a half-step incarnation realm expert is no match for him. Especially talented people like us. Tisk tsk, what a handsome little brother. What an abundant blood chi. If I can collect his essence, I'll definitely be able to break through to the essence soul realm. It's a pity that he has such a beautiful woman by his side. I'm afraid it won't be easy to charm him. That's not necessarily true. This kid is young and vigorous. He might still be a virgin. That little beauty's aura is 100% still a virgin. Ha! If we attack both of them separately, with our charm, we might be able to succeed. It's just that, our combat strength is probably not as good as theirs. So, we can only dream about it. Don't even think about it. Chen Hao is still okay, but that Qin Shui doesn't have the immortal reverent protection token. Look at how many Essence Soul Realm experts are here. It won't even be your turn. Although the immortal reverent protection token was issued by the immortal Dao, it was an agreement jointly made by the immortal Dao, Demon Dao, and Demon Dao. The Demon Dao and Demon Dao similarly had the Demon Venerable and Demon Venerable protection tokens. Basically, no one dared to violate it. Otherwise, the world would truly be in chaos. More and more cultivators gathered. They stared at Chen Hao and Qin Shui, who stood side by side with solemn expressions, and buzzed in discussion. Most of them were Incarnation Realm cultivators, but there were also many at the peak of the early stage Essence Soul Realm. There were very few at the mid-stage Essence Soul Realm, and even fewer at the late-stage Essence Soul Realm. Once a cultivator stepped into the Essence Soul Realm, the speed of their advancement would become extremely difficult. Not only did it require a huge amount of primordial crystal stones and other spiritual items of heaven and earth, but it was also filled with layers of mysteries. It was almost the limit of what most cultivators could comprehend. Many cultivators were stuck at the peak of the early stage Essence Soul Realm, unable to step into the mid-stage Essence Soul Realm their entire lives. Not to mention the Creation Realm. This was also the reason why the sect masters of the 9th rank sects in the Immortal Tao were merely experts at the Creation Realm. Not long after, close to 30 figures with powerful auras gathered together. Yi Shanshui, who was only at the peak of the late-stage Incarnation Realm, had long lost his usual composure. His devilishly handsome face was filled with gloom and coldness. I didn't expect this kid to be so high-profile. Since that's the case, we'll trample him to death fair and square. Send your consciousness to me. With the help of God's Eye, I guarantee that they won't be able to hide. All right. Hiss. In an instant, the other 20 or so disciples sent a wisp of their consciousness into Yi Shanshui's God's Eye. Under Yi Shanshui's activation, the sensitivity of everyone's perception within a radius of 1,000 feet instantly increased by several times. This caused the nearby Essence Soul Realm experts who were hiding in the void to be unable to hide. Ha! Brother Yi, this God's Eye is indeed a superior grade spiritual treasure. It's so magical. Later, let me take on that kid in the first round. Alright. That kid's combat power is not to be underestimated. Since he dares to do this, he must have sufficient confidence. Don't worry. I'm a half-step to the Essence Soul Realm. Can't I deal with him? Without the advantage of concealment, I won't be able to do anything. Don't let your guard down. This time, no matter what, we must kill him. So, later on, we just need to. Yi Shanshui instructed everyone through telepathy. Only a few of them frowned slightly at Yi Shanshui's words. However, Yi Shanshui was the leader of this mission and had the strongest combat power. They could only obey. However, in their hearts, they were a little disdainful of Yi Shanshui. It was just an early-stage Incarnation Realm and a late-stage Incarnation Realm. Was there a need to do this? They're here. So fucking slow. So they're waiting for people. 30 people. TSK, the immortal path of the Southern Sea Islands is known as the top of the 3 immortal paths. They're not as good as their reputation. They're already so scared of 2 people from the Eastern continent. Don't tell me they're going to win with numbers. Don't be sarcastic. Why don't the Eastern continent find more than 30 young geniuses to try? Boom. Boom. As soon as Yi Shanshui and the others appeared, their auras skyrocketed rapidly. The surrounding cultivators immediately cleared a path for them. The 30 cultivators did not show any sign of carelessness. They immediately surrounded Chen Hao and Qin Shui in the middle. Kid, you've killed the top genius of the Coiling Dragon Valley, Yu Qingfeng. Today, I, Yi Shanshui, will make sure you die a horrible death. How dare you kill the top genius of the Heavenly Fortune sect, the son of the Patriarch, Little Heavenly Fortune Hanji. You're simply courting death. You've killed the top genius of the Flying Sword Pavilion, Shengguanyang. You must die. Yi Shanshui and the other four all had cold expressions on their faces, as if they were sworn enemies. Every time they said a name, the surrounding cultivators' minds would tremble, and their gazes towards Chen Hao and Qin Shui would have a trace of surprise. Even though they had heard about the incident in the Sky City, it was something that happened between the three forces. Not many people were clear about the details. They really did not expect that the people Chen Hao and Qin Shui killed in the Sky City were all outstanding figures of the 9th-rank sects of the South Sea Islands. This was equivalent to wiping out half of the South Sea Islands' younger generation's luck. How could they not be shocked? Even though the cultivators of the South Sea Islands had nothing to do with Chen Hao and Qin Shui, they were all worried for them at this moment. It was obvious that the situation would not end well no matter what. This was no longer as simple as a duel. Why are you talking nonsense? It's nothing more than finding an excuse for your shamelessness. Do you want a one-on-one battle or a shameless siege? Just bring it on. We'll take it all. Chen Hao's handsome face flashed with a trace of disdain as he said coldly and arrogantly. It was as if he did not take the other party seriously at all. However, his heart was extremely heavy. He had long thought that there would be more than 3 people on the other side, but he did not expect there to be 30 of them. Moreover, 6 of them were half a step to the primordial soul realm. The others were at least at the late stage of the incarnation realm. Moreover, their auras were not weak. Yi Shanshui, who was at the late stage of the incarnation realm, had a terrifying aura around him. This was under the premise that he did not reveal his bloodline aura. How dare you? Do you think the 2 of you are worthy of being besieged by us? You think too highly of yourself. I, Sima Xiangbei, will take you on first. Let's see how arrogant you are. Boom! Sima Xiangbei, who was half a step to the primordial soul realm, suddenly rushed to a distance of 3,000 feet away from Chen Hao and stood still. With a clang, he unsheathed his sword. So you want to take turns to fight? Let me do it. Just as Chen Hao was about to make his move, Qin Shui suddenly said, leave the first 15 to me. The rest are yours. Her cold voice was faint. However, the words that she said, coupled with her beautiful figure and appearance, and the sudden surge of her aura, shocked everyone. Chen Hao's lips curled into an arrogant smile as he looked at Qin Shui and said, there's no need to be so detailed. When it's about time, just leave it to me. Don't tire yourself because it's not worth it for a bunch of trash. Especially when he sensed the aura that Qin Shui released at this moment, the worry in his heart faded away and he became extremely proud. I fell asleep while writing. I really could not take it anymore. After sleeping for 3 hours, I got up and continued writing. Finally, I finished. Chapter 353. That won't do. I'm not much richer than you, let's split it evenly. Qin Shui glared at Qin Hao with a hint of coquettishness in her expression. Cough cough. Then let's take turns depending on the situation. I'll let you go first this round. Qin Hao was slightly stunned by Qin Shui's words and coquettishness. He shrugged and looked at Qin Shui with anticipation. Could it be that this girl's strength was beyond his imagination? Then why did she persuade him just now? That's more like it. Qin Shui replied. If Qin Shui did not emit an aura that made many half-step to incarnation realm experts tremble, everyone would have thought that she and Qin Hao were flirting. The 2 of them were facing 30 top geniuses from the South Sea Archipelago who were stronger than them in terms of cultivation level. They were talking and laughing as if they were nothing. This kind of naked contempt and confidence made the onlookers exclaim in surprise. At the same time, it also made Yi Shanshui and the others look gloomy and angry. Bitch, don't blame me for being ruthless. Go to hell. Wait. Just as Sima Xiangbei was about to attack, Qin Hao suddenly stopped him loudly. He did not even look at Sima Xiangbei and directly looked at Yi Shanshui provocatively. He said, Yi Shanshui, right? Since our battle has attracted so many experts from various forces, we have to draw a line, don't you think so? Draw a line. Do you still want to leave here alive today? That's all I need to say. Xiao Shui, let's begin. Chen Hao waved and said. Boom. Sima Xiangbei, who could not wait, attacked violently. As one of the 6 half-step to primordial soul realm experts, his aura was instantly raised to the limit. His physical body, nascent soul, and mind were condensed to the extreme at this moment, and there was already a trace of primordial soul realm aura vaguely. With a stab of the sword, a pitch-black space crack appeared in the space of 1,000 feet, completely enveloping Chen Shui under his sword essence. He could sense that although Chen Shui was at the peak of the late stage of incarnation realm, her aura was slightly superior to his. The advantage of cultivation level was gone. Thus, even though he was furious, he did not dare to be careless. Chen Shui grunted coldly. Clang! The high-grade spirit artifact, Skysplitter, was unsheathed. She drew her sword and attacked in one smooth motion. Her figure was graceful while her sword move was simple, fierce, and direct, and it was even filled with boundless profundities of space and lightning. Not bad. The pupils of Chen Hao, who stood proudly like a master, constricted slightly the instant he saw Chen Shui draw her sword, and he praised in his heart. It was obvious that Chen Shui was displaying the supreme sword technique that he had taught her, the solitary sword technique. Moreover, Chen Hao could clearly sense that Chen Shui's seemingly casual strike was perfectly aimed at the flaw in Sima Xiangnan's attack. Rumble. The moment the sword radiance collided, Sima Xiangbei's sword radiance, which seemed more powerful, was instantly shattered and swallowed by Chen Shui's sword. At the same time, Chen Shui, who was dressed in a blue dress, was like a ray of blue flowing light as she charged at Sima Xiangbei at lightning speed. The greatest advantage of the solitary sword technique could only be displayed in close combat. Chen Shui, who was not inferior to Sima Xiangbei in any aspect, would naturally choose to engage in close combat. How could Sima Xiangbei, who was half a step to the primordial soul realm, be afraid? Ding ding ding. Boom boom boom. In an instant, the figures of the two intertwined. Sword chi crisscrossed, and exquisite sword moves emerged one after another. Countless spectating experts cheered loudly, especially the cultivators from the immortal way of the East Mainland. Their cheers resonated through the clouds with obvious pride and excitement because Chen Shui had the absolute advantage. That was indeed the case. Even Chen Hao was a little impressed by Chen Shui's understanding of the solitary sword technique. Although there was still a large gap between him and Chen Shui, how long had Chen Shui been cultivating? It was already quite impressive for her to be able to comprehend it to such an extent. Of course, Chen Hao was also clearly aware that this was due to Chen Shui's powerful soul. Otherwise, in a battle of this level, even if the creator of the solitary sword technique was here, he would be utterly unable to display any might and would be killed by the attacks that were as fast as lightning. Without the restrictions of the arena, the battle between the two of them was unrestrained and unrestrained. In the blink of an eye, they were thousands of feet away. The cultivators who had surrounded the city within a radius of 10 miles moved along with the two of them. The more Chen Hao watched, the more relaxed he became. Others only knew that Leng Yihan had comprehended the legendary destruction sword principle, but Chen Hao knew that Chen Shui had inherited the destruction sword principle. As for what realm she was at least on par with Leng Yihan. Once she displayed it, how powerful would it be? 5 minutes later. Chen Shui was closing in. The more Sima Xiangbei fought, the more terrified he became. At this moment, not only was he completely suppressed by Chen Shui, but he could not get rid of Chen Shui at all. He did not even have the slightest chance to unleash his ultimate move. If this continued, he would definitely be killed by Chen Shui's sword in less than 2 minutes. At this moment, he finally understood why Yi Shanshui, who had the highest combat strength, was so cautious. Brother Yi, I'm afraid Sima Xiangbei can't hold on any longer. I didn't expect Chen Shui's combat strength to be so high, especially her sword technique. This can't go on. What can we do? In front of so many people, are we going to rush in together? Secretly prepare, unleash your ultimate move, catch her off guard, and kill her. At this point, we can only give up on this woman. Yi Shanshui transmitted his voice with a gloomy expression. This is an order. As long as you kill her, no one will say anything. If we fight her fair and square, who knows how many of us will die. If you don't want to die, hurry up. He can't hold on any longer. Alright, just as Qin Shui completely suppressed her opponent to the point that he could not retaliate and could only defend, Qin Shui knew that the time had come. Buzz! The 6th level of the chaotic lightning sword was completed in an instant with the help of the superior grade spirit weapon, the sky-shattering sword. Ah, it's my turn. Go to hell. Just as Sima Xiangbei let out a frightening cry, a loud shout accompanied by an extremely frightening pressure suddenly came from behind Qin Shui and swiftly attacked. Under the cover of Yi Shanshui and the others, the second half-step primordial soul expert directly unleashed his strongest ultimate move for a sneak attack. It was as though he had torn through the void at an unimaginable speed. Little Shui, this is my opponent. Just do what you need to do. Just as Qin Shui sensed the fatal threat from behind and was about to abandon Sima Xiangnan and turn around, Qin Hao's voice rang out. Cold, arrogant, and calm, as though he had long known that the other party was going to launch a sneak attack. However, Qin Hao's figure was 10,000 feet away, and he had just leaped into the air. Could he make it in time? In that instant, although Qin Shui had judged that Qin Hao could not make it in time, she chose to believe him without any reason. She believed that Qin Hao had completely placed his back, which meant that his life was in Qin Hao's hands. Poof! Ah! Sima Xiangnan let out a shrill cry. His eyes were filled with fear as he watched Qin Shui's sword radiance, which contained the terrifying mysteries of space and lightning, engulfed him. Then, he lost consciousness. At the same time, just as the countless experts who were watching the scene exclaimed in shock, an extremely sharp sword radiance suddenly appeared behind Qin Shui. It appeared out of nowhere and without any warning, it slashed toward the half-step primordial soul expert who had launched a sneak attack at an even more terrifying speed. Kaboom! The moment there was a loud explosion, the sword radiance shattered. The expert who had launched the sneak attack retreated quickly. His originally sinister and smug expression was now filled with shock. Even now, he could not figure out how Qin Hao had managed to do it. Furthermore, the sword radiance that seemed to have been hidden in the void had actually blocked his ultimate move. Not only that, it had even forced him to retreat. How could this be? The countless onlookers widened their eyes in shock. They could not understand how Qin Hao had managed to do it. Only an extremely small number of primordial soul experts could tell what was going on. All of them were shocked. What a strong control of his inner yuan. No, it's definitely not as simple as the control of his inner yuan. This requires an even stronger concealment of his aura. How did he manage to do it? Even this old man couldn't see any clues. The primordial soul expert who could tell what was going on thought in shock. At the same time, a figure who had merged with the aura of the mountains and rivers had a look of shock in his eyes. He muttered to himself, how can he be so strong? Die! While everyone was still immersed in a daze, Qin Hao's clear and cold voice sounded out. His voice was swift like a bolt of lightning, and he'd already appeared between Qin Shui and the person who launched the sneak attack in the blink of an eye. Accompanied by a voice that was like the urging of the King of Hell, Qin Hao simply stabbed out with his sword. Chi! The void was directly torn apart. A ray of light that was supposed to be emitting a 7-colored light was wrapped in a crack in the void. There was no strong aura being released. There was only condensation and speed. Incomparably condensation and terrifying speed. The sneak attacker wanted to scream, and fight for his life. However, his consciousness only lingered at the last moment. Before he could do anything, he became a corpse with a hole in his soul dwelling between his eyebrows. Everything was within his expectations, yet it was also beyond his expectations. What was expected was that everyone knew that the 30 top geniuses of the South Sea archipelago would definitely not watch Sima Xiangbei die in the hands of Qin Shui. What was unexpected was that a half-step primordial soul expert had actually launched a sneak attack in front of everyone. What was even more unexpected was that Qin Hao had actually killed him in an instant. It was too fast, too sudden, and too stunning. Everyone could not react in time. Kill. Kill him. Kill him. No one was not frightened. Including Yi Shanshui, everyone was completely shocked by Qin Hao. At this moment, how could he still dare to care about his dignity and face? The shocking combat power that Qin Hao had displayed was completely beyond their imagination. It was not something that any one of them could fight against alone. If they went up one by one, what kind of ending would they face? Death. They were all killed by Qin Hao one by one as if they were vegetables. Chapter 354. Boom boom boom. At this moment, the remaining 28 people no longer cared about their dignity and honor. If the Southern Sea Archipelago had mobilized 30 of their top geniuses and were fully prepared, yet they were still unable to kill Qin Hao and Qin Shui, then they would truly lose face. Not to mention the danger of being killed. Without needing Yi Shanshui's order, all of them violently activated their energy. The 28 people surrounded Qin Hao and Qin Shui from all directions. Moreover, each of them instantly activated their bloodline power and frantically condensed their strongest ultimate move. Ah ah, countless screams came from all directions. So fucking shameless. They're attacking at the same time. Fuck. What is this? Fuck them, I can't take it anymore. I'm going to sacrifice myself for the immortal Tao of the Eastern continent. How can we let such prodigies die at the hands of scoundrels? Boom boom boom. A shocking scene took place. Countless figures from the immortal Tao cultivators of the Eastern continent shot toward the core. Let the young people solve their problems. Do you think the immortal Tao of the South Sea archipelago is easy to bully? Attack. Hiss hiss hiss. The immortal Tao of the South Sea archipelago already had a huge advantage. Although they felt humiliated, if the immortal Tao of the Eastern continent really helped Qin Hao and Qin Shui to kill the young prodigies of the South Sea archipelago, it would be unbearable. In their opinion, Yi Shanshui and the others were undoubtedly doing the right thing. The two prodigies of the Eastern continent were simply too amazing, especially Qin Hao. If he was allowed to grow, their South Sea archipelago would definitely be trampled underfoot by the Eastern continent in the future. Moreover, at this point, everyone vaguely understood why the immortal Tao of the South Sea archipelago had sent so many top prodigies to kill Qin Hao and Qin Shui. They were definitely monstrous prodigies that could not be seen in 1,000 years, at least in the three major forces. This was a battle for fortune and honor. Losing face for a few people was not a big deal, but losing face for the entire immortal Tao of the Eastern continent was a big deal. This was a matter of sacrificing oneself to protect the honor of the immortal Tao of the South Sea archipelago. Die. Die for me. Ha ha ha, Qin Shui, even if it's a corpse, I, Yi Shanshui, won't let you be innocent. All of you, die. When faced with 28 extremely terrifying ultimate moves that covered the heavens and the earth, the eyes of Qin Hao and Qin Shui flickered with unprecedented piercingly cold battle intent, and they attacked at the same time. Wang! The sky-shattering sword emitted a dark blue lightning radiance. The energy around Qin Shui's body was crazily extracted. Her essence, qi, true yuan, mind, and even the power of every cell in her body was completely released at this moment. The 8th level of the primal chaos lightning sword, lightning annihilation. At the same time, the aura of the destruction sword principle, which was extremely compatible with the aura of lightning annihilation, suddenly burst out. Victory or defeat would depend on this strike. This was the real her, and it was almost her strongest attack. This attack was countless times stronger than the other her. On the other hand, Qin Hao was different from Qin Shui. His body was trembling violently, and the energy around him was circulating at a terrifying speed. However, it was far from crazy because he was confident. When he killed a half-step primordial soul realm expert with a single strike, it gave him such confidence. Swoosh 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 swoosh, in the chaotic battle between the two sides of the immortal Tao, in the eyes of countless cultivators who were not involved, and in the shock of the black bamboo hat, Jian Wufei, Lei Long, and the others, his body transformed into 6 figures in an instant. The 6 figures were extremely condensed. The aura of each figure was extremely terrifying. What was even more shocking was that only one of the 6 figures had a normal color, while the other 5 represented the 5 different colors of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Without a doubt, these 5 figures were the external avatars that could only be used by experts above the immortal Tao stage. However, even half-step primordial soul realm experts would rarely be able to create external avatars as lifelike as Qin Hao, let alone 5. Furthermore, the aura of each of them clearly told everyone that Qin Hao had condensed them into a magical treasure. At this moment, the sound of countless cultivators sucking in cold breaths of air was emitted from their mouths. Lei Long from the pavilion of heavenly armaments opened his eyes wide, and his body trembled slightly. At this moment, he even wanted to disregard his status as a member of the Chamber of Commerce and fight side by side with Qin Hao. Jian Wufei, who was determined to defeat Qin Hao fair and square, had a look of extreme shock in her eyes. Her body was trembling and her face was pale. She couldn't describe what she was feeling right now. She knew that before the battle even began, she had already lost. She had lost completely. Ever since the battle with Qin Hao, she, who had lost her immortal Tao stage will, had been cultivating bitterly. Her improvement was absolutely shocking, and the increase in her combat power was absolutely shocking. Originally, she thought that when she met Qin Hao again, she would defeat Qin Hao fair and square. But now, not only did the gap between them not shrink, but it also became unreachable. The man in the black bamboo hat was even more indescribable. In short, he felt conflicted. As a member of the immortal Tao of the Eastern continent, he hoped that Qin Hao would be able to kill all of his opponents. However, he also hoped that Qin Hao would die under the orders of the sect leader. Seeing Qin Hao display such heaven-defying talent, he really didn't know whether he should be excited or worried. Chi 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 chi. The 5 clones and the original body attacked at the same time. They didn't disappoint Qin Hao, and he didn't have the time to think about whether or not they would succeed. Terrifying destructive sword intent radiated from the 6 clones. The solitary sword technique, the platinum sky-splitting slash, and the mysteries of space were unleashed at the same time. Whirling slash. No one could describe what they were feeling at that moment. Even the experts in the early stage of the primordial spirit realm felt a sense of fear from the bottom of their hearts when they saw Qin Hao's 5 sword lights that were connected together like an aurora cutting through space. Boom 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 boom, continuous explosions, one after another, rang out in everyone's ears, accompanied by horrified and despairing screams. Severed arms, severed limbs, heads, and fresh blood stained a large area of space red. Crack crack. At the same time, the terrifying thunderous sword light descended like a miniature divine punishment. Several clones were directly reduced to dust by the thunderous sword light. The immortal Tao personnel who were engaged in a fierce battle between the southern sea islands and the eastern continent stopped fighting in shock. All the spectating cultivators were dumbfounded, and the area within a radius of nearly 100 kilometers was completely silent. They stared blankly at the battle that had ended as quickly as it had come. They stared at the 6 clones of Qin Hao as they instantly merged into one. They stared at the tiny hand of Qin Hao, who seemed to be very weak but had a smile at the corner of her mouth. Even through the black veil, one could feel the myriad of emotions within her. With a wave of his hand, waves of energy were emitted. The weapons, storage rings, and other items that had yet to fall to the ground turned into streams of flowing light and merged into Qin Hao's storage ring. Then, the 2 of them soundlessly turned into 2 gusts of wind and completely disappeared from everyone's stupefied gazes. 30 people, all dead. Whoosh! After a full minute of silence, all of the spectating cultivators erupted into an uproar. Regardless of whether it was the immortal Tao, the monster Tao, or the demonic Tao, no one dared to believe their eyes. Countless gasps of shock and disbelief sounded in everyone's ears. On the first day they stepped out of the eastern continent, the names of Qin Hao and Qin Shui rose into the sky like a fiery red sun. The eastern continent, the western continent, the southern sea archipelago, the immortal Tao, the demonic Tao, and the demonic Tao had never been seen in 1,000 years. Xiao Fei, let's go. This is a true prodigy who can shake up the entire cultivation world. There's no need for you to compare yourself to him. Even if it's an obsession, you can only let go. If you remove this knot in your heart, your cultivation will eventually be restricted. This kind of person will not become your inner demon, because he is destined to be someone that we cannot compare to. Master. Jian Wufei's face was pale. She was still immersed in shock, and her voice trembled slightly. You are the disciple that I am most proud of. Even the limitless immortal palace values you greatly. But you have to understand that a snake cannot be compared to a dragon. Do not belittle yourself, and do not bite off more than you can chew. Let go. Only by letting go can you transform from a snake into a dragon one day. Otherwise, you will be reduced to mediocrity. She is not inferior to the monstrous prodigies of the Middle Continent, and he is even more so. It's a pity. If not for my status in the Chamber of Commerce, I might not have met them by chance. Lei Long shook his head and said regretfully. He had helped Qin Hao, but it was only a reminder. If he had shown that he was willing to fight together with Qin Hao, even if it was just a gesture, he would not be as disappointed as he was now. This kind of prodigy was destined to become a peak existence. If he could form a good relationship with him, whether it was his own fate or his future cultivation level, it would most likely change greatly. Lei Long thought for a moment and thought of the auction that Qin Hao had mentioned. His eyes flashed, and he quickly disappeared into the buzzing crowd. I should leave. That's it, I'm free. From today onwards, I'm no longer me. It's the new me. Even though the Origin School can't do anything to me, so long as the Origin School goes against him, it will probably face a calamity sooner or later. Instead of this, why don't I leave as soon as possible? The man in the black bamboo hat took a deep breath and vanished on the spot. I've struck it rich this time. Hee. In the sky, Qin Hao, who had merged with everything in the world, looked at the slightly weak Qin Shui and spoke complacently. Qin Shui paid no attention to Qin Hao's complacency, and she looked directly at Qin Hao, who seemed as if nothing had happened. Instead, as she asked, "You've still retained your strength?" "I've basically not retained it. I just didn't summon the 5 divine beasts. Look, my energy is the same as yours, it's almost completely exhausted." "Then why are you still so spirited?" "My body is strong." Qin Hao patted his chest and said proudly. Then, he looked at Qin Shui and said, "However, that attack of yours was really strong. If it was me, I might not have been able to take it. If you could change the chaotic lightning sword to the platinum sky-splitting slash, it would definitely be stronger." "You haven't mastered the platinum sky-splitting slash. There are only 2 chapters left. Recently, day and night have been reversed, and I'm not strong enough. The pressure is too great, and I feel like I'm on the verge of collapse. I'll adjust my schedule and go to bed early. Dark Mountain promised to clear my debt on the 17th. When the time comes, I'll settle the debt. If I can't complete it, Dark Mountain will double the compensation. Thank you to AAA 999 AAA for your generous gifts, thank you to Dream Return for your gifts, and thank you to all the brothers who voted. I'm very gratified to have your support during my low tide. Thank you." Chapter 355. Qin Shui glared at Qin Hao and said, "Yes, I've mastered it. But didn't you say that I can't risk my life unless I have no other choice? I have to at least leave some energy to escape, right? Platinum sky-splitting slash, if I use it, I can only use it once, and it will drain all my energy." "That's right. It's good that you can master it in such a short time. When you're familiar with the use of power, you can slowly control it. However, if you use it at full power, it's very difficult to use it more than 10 times. This platinum sky-splitting slash will increase with the increase of our cultivation, and the energy it needs to use will also become more and more. Not only did the number of times I can use it at full power not increase, it decreased instead. I can only use it 6 times. Chen Hao said. After stepping into the incarnation realm, the power of the platinum sky-splitting slash naturally increased a lot, but the number of times Chen Hao could use it decreased sharply. If Chen Hao's estimation was right, when he reached the half-step primordial soul realm, which was the peak of the incarnation realm, he should be able to increase it again between 10 to 12 times. In such a situation, the only explanation was that the platinum sky-splitting slash used by Chen Hao was still a transcendent level unique skill. It was simply impossible to use it as a sword skill that could be used casually. You used the external incarnation to use it 6 times at the same time just now. That's right. If the external incarnation is successfully condensed, it will be much faster than using a unique skill consecutively. You can try to refine the sky-shattering sword into an external incarnation. It's definitely not difficult for you. Oh. What's with your sword principle inheritance? Didn't you say that it's very weak? Why is it also the destruction sword principle like me? Chen Shui asked. She had wanted to ask this question since the intersect competition. But at that time, she couldn't ask. Ha! I thought it was useless, so how could I tell you what it was? But now, I can tell you. What? Secular sword Dao. Chen Shui was slightly taken aback before she seemed to have thought of something. Her gaze towards Chen Hao became a little strange as she frowned and said, "No wonder you've changed so much. After I comprehended the destruction sword principle, my mother specially told me about the attributes of the sword principle. The secular sword principle is the rarest sword principle and also the most difficult sword principle to cultivate. It's equivalent to the combination of all sword principles. If you comprehend it yourself, you have to integrate yourself into the secular world and taste the various extreme emotions of humans. Not only does it require you to break through the secular world, but you also have to be able to integrate yourself into various states of mind at any time and place. Only in this way can you truly cultivate the secular sword principle. Otherwise, you won't be able to control it at all. Since you've obtained the inheritance, you've saved a lot of effort compared to others." As they spoke, the two people, who had merged with all things in the world, entered Jade Smoke City. Outside Emerald Smoke City. Hiss hiss hiss. Less than 2 hours after all the cultivators had left, the void was suddenly torn apart and a figure silently appeared at the place where Chen Hao and the others had just fought. It was a middle-aged man. Even if a creation realm expert was here, he would not be able to sense his aura. The middle-aged man's eyes shone with a bright light as he swept his gaze over the surroundings. Then, with a wave of his hand, 4 golden rays of light suddenly rose out of thin air and condensed into 4 tokens in the blink of an eye. They were the guardian tokens of the Wuji Immortal Palace. After the tokens were condensed, 4 mirror-like light screens shone out. What was even more shocking was that scenes appeared on the light screens. One of the figures that appeared was Yi Shanshui, and the other 3 were the disciples that Chen Hao and Chen Shui had killed. The images kept changing, and not long after, the 4 images almost became the same. It was the experience of the 4 people on the eve of the great battle. A moment later, the great battle began. When the great battle ended, the 4 light screens exploded with a bang and disappeared. This Chen Shui is the daughter of Venerable Han Mei, right? According to Fairy Yunwei, Chen Hao is also one of Venerable Han Mei's people. These 4 guys have no regrets. No wonder Venerable Yunwei admires Chen Hao so much. His battle strength can be ranked first among the monstrous geniuses of the central continent. If Chen Shui really fuses, I'm afraid she'll be even stronger. Such a combination, and Chen Hao has a guardian token, it's too much of a bully. Whatever, this is not something I can handle. I just need to report the truth. The middle-aged man thought to himself. Immediately, the void was torn apart again and they disappeared on the spot. Little Shui, let's change our image, after arriving in the vicinity of a large inn, Chen Hao still held on to Chen Shui's soft little hand, but his face was serious as he spoke. It was impossible to say that Chen Hao didn't feel anything. Even Chen Shui couldn't not feel anything. They were both in their prime and in their youth. No matter if it was a man or a woman, they would more or less have a slightly restless heart. Not to mention the two of them were already restless people of the opposite sex. It was just that the special, sibling, relationship between the two of them made this subtle feeling draped in a glorious coat that no one wanted to break. Chen Shui frowned and stared at Chen Hao. Just now I didn't have time to pay attention to you when you called me Little Shui. Why are you still calling me that now? Is there a problem? With our relationship, I can't call you Chen Shui, right? That's too unfamiliar. How about I call you Big Snow, Old Snow, or Blizzard? Chen Hao laughed. Don't you think it's just right to call me Sister Shui? Don't even think about it. This is for you. You can change it after we get a room. Don't show up, just follow me. Chen Hao said as he took out a set of black robes and bamboo hat and handed it to Chen Shui. He also took out a set and put it on. Chen Shui glared at Chen Hao in dissatisfaction, but didn't argue. 2 luxurious rooms. After entering the inn, Chen Hao, who was wearing a black robe and bamboo hat, directly went to the front desk and said in a cold voice. I'm sorry, sir. Because of the large-scale auction of the Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce, we only have 1 luxurious room. This one was just left empty after we received news of the battle outside the city. Then 2 ordinary rooms, Chen Hao said. I'm sorry, the ordinary rooms are already gone. The entire Emerald Smoke City is overcrowded. If it weren't for the fact that one of our experts died in the battle just now, we wouldn't have any empty rooms, the attendant said respectfully. He had no scruples about the dead. Of course, in this world, no one would have any scruples. Oh. The rooms for the top geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands? Chen Hao asked with a frown. Yes. Sir, do you need it? That room is the best in our inn. It can accommodate 11 people without a problem. It's just that the price is a bit higher. Okay. That one. Hearing the attendant say so, Chen Hao directly said. 100 low-grade crystals a day. It's really expensive. But it seems to be worth it. When Chen Hao entered the room, he said to Chen Shui, who had already revealed herself. The room was very large, as if it was in a small palace. There were 10 small suites and 1 main suite. Each suite had a bathroom and a cultivation room. I'll go and recover first, Chen Shui said. What's the hurry? Let's see what we got first. Otherwise, I'll embezzle. Chen Hao said with a smile. As he spoke, he took out the spirit tools and storage rings he had just obtained with a trace of expectation on his face. 30 top geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands, all of them, the harvest would not be small, right? Embezzle as much as you want, just give me what is useful to me. I just need to temper my body. Chen Shui said. Saying so, she walked directly to a small suite. The moment she closed the door, she seemed to think of something and smiled. Little brother, do you have any more spirit spring? Give me some more. Yes. But I can't give it to you. If you want it, you have to learn how to speak first. Forget it. Chen Shui looked at Chen Hao's proud expression, curled her lips and said. After speaking, she closed the door with a bang and pretended to be angry. This is my principle, how can I give in? After not sensing Chen Shui's aura, Chen Hao's mouth revealed a smile, and he thought to himself. Although he didn't know if Chen Shui was waiting at the door, he deliberately raised his voice and counted 12 million low-grade primordial crystals, 2 million mid-grade primordial crystals, 130,000 high-grade primordial crystals, 387 top-grade primordial crystals, 30 high-grade spirit weapons, 20 mid-grade treasured clothes, and 10 high-grade treasured clothes. And these extremely valuable special pills, hee hee. As expected of the top geniuses of the southern sea islands, really rich. Unfortunately, these treasured clothes have become rotten goods. Unless they are repaired, they are not worth much. But it's enough. This time, even if I consume it quickly, it's enough for me to use for 2 years. Huh? What is this? Just when Chen Hao arranged everything in front of him, a dark blue ball thing mixed in a pile of odds and ends attracted Chen Hao's attention. Judging from the aura, he couldn't sense any power at all. If he didn't look carefully, he would think that it was some kind of treasure collection. But when Chen Hao's mind probed one by one, he found something unusual about it. A subtle, almost imperceptible, profound aura concealed its aura. Hiss. Chen Hao directly took out a strand of blood essence and sprayed it on the dark blue crystal ball the size of an eyeball, and his mind immediately merged into it. After a moment, Chen Hao's eyes widened in surprise, and he looked at the door of the room where Chen Shui was. Hey, little Shui, don't wait at the door, this is a matter of principle, call me brother, maybe I will give it to you. Well, you have to be willing to call me brother, what are you staring at? Yeah, what's wrong with clenching your fists and biting your teeth? Ha ha ha. Chen Hao laughed proudly. And Chen Shui, who had merged into the world, waiting at the door for Chen Hao to change his mind and give her the spirit spring, also widened her eyes in shock. He saw her. How was this possible? Fuck, at this time, Chen Hao suddenly cursed. He suddenly retracted his gaze. It wasn't because of Chen Shui, but because he could see even further, directly seeing the room of another guest. This was not a visual sight, but a perception so sharp that it shocked Chen Hao. Even if Chen Shui had merged into the world, she still appeared clearly in his perception. And in the room next door, he could sense 2 auras. They were both experts of the incarnation stage, but they were stacked together, and were vibrating at a high frequency. Although he could only sense their auras, but he knew what the 2 were doing. How could Chen Hao not be shocked? It must be known that between the rooms, there were layers upon layers of seals and seals. Even Chen Hao's powerful soul perception was unable to penetrate through. But at this moment, he could clearly sense it, and it was inadvertently. Chapter 356. Fortunately, I'm stronger than them. If I wasn't their match, how would I run? God's Eye, high-grade spirit treasure. Spirit treasure, not spirit weapon. Squeak. When Chen Shui heard Chen Hao's crazy words, she finally couldn't resist the curiosity in her heart and walked out. What God's Eye? Send a wisp of your mind over. A dark blue light suddenly shone from between Chen Hao's eyebrows, as if a third eye had appeared, emitting a profound mystery. At the instant Chen Shui withdrew a strand of her consciousness and fused it into the space between Chen Hao's brows, her perception instantly became extremely sharp, and it instantly and silently penetrated through the layer upon layer of seals set up by the inn, causing Chen Shui to stare with surprise, and then she was shocked and hastily withdrew her perception. High-grade spirit treasure. Hee hee. I've made a huge profit this time. With it, my perception range can be increased by at least 3 times, and the sensitivity of close-range perception can be increased by 100 times. Good stuff. Moreover, it can be applied to your body. This thing fell off from Yi Shanshui's body. I really didn't expect that in order to deal with the 2 of us, the southern sea islands actually paid such a huge price. When Chen Hao saw Chen Shui's face suddenly turn red, he hurriedly changed the topic and said proudly. Of course, he knew what Chen Shui sensed. Then, I'll give you the spirit spring. Although this is effective in tempering the body, the effect is too weak. I'll give this to you too. Chen Hao didn't wait for Chen Shui to speak and said. As he spoke, he handed over the storage ring and a jade slip that contained the spirit spring to Chen Shui. What is this? You don't need to know what it is. You only need to try chanting when you cultivate. It doesn't matter if you understand or not, as long as you divide a wisp of your mind to chant. I don't know if it's useful to you. Give it a try. Chen Hao said. Chen Shui frowned slightly, but still took it in her hand and directly entered the cultivation room. Her soul is also extremely powerful, it should be useful. After Chen Shui entered the cultivation room, Chen Hao secretly said in his heart. If it was possible, Chen Hao would have imparted the platinum sky-splitting slash and the 3,000 great Daos to Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lian and Xia Yuyu a long time ago, but he didn't. Because he knew very well that even if he passed it to the three of them, they would not be able to cultivate it at all. This was because it required a sufficiently powerful soul to support it. Otherwise, it would have the opposite effect. Only Chen Xuefeng, who had a powerful soul, could do it. I should still be able to make it now. If I don't need anything, I'll just sell it all off. Should I directly sell it to the Heavenly Armament Pavilion? Chen Hao looked at the damaged armor and the intact high-grade spirit weapon and thought to himself. Although he had a lot of primordial crystal stones now, it was only enough for Chen Hao to use for his own cultivation for a long time. If he wanted to refine the 5 mythological beasts and further fuse with the mysterious existence, he would have to make do. After stepping into the incarnation realm, Chen Hao could already fuse with the mysterious existence further. However, due to the lack of sufficient energy to support it, it had never been carried out. Even the 5 divine beasts didn't continue their tempering. The price might be lower, but it doesn't matter. At least it'll be faster. Thinking of this, Chen Hao kept the things and walked out of the room. 4 hours later, Chen Hao returned with a full load. He was a little surprised by Lei Long's enthusiasm and generosity. 30 upper-grade spirit weapons were sold for an average of 300,000 mid-grade primordial crystal stones each. Even if this price was taken out for auction, it would not be much higher. And the 10 damaged upper-grade spirit weapons were sold for an average of 200,000 mid-grade primordial crystal stones. The 20 upper-grade spirit weapons were sold for an average of 10,000 mid-grade primordial crystal stones. This made Chen Hao feel even more surprised. What's more, Lei Long had exchanged all of Chen Hao's primordial crystal stones for upper-grade spirit weapons according to the normal ratio. Chen Hao was sure that Lei Long was making a loss in this transaction. At least on the surface. But in reality, Lei Long had indeed put in a lot of effort. Moreover, he had directly closed the deal without going through the higher-ups. However, what Chen Hao did not know was that after Lei Long had bought all of the things that Chen Hao had sold to him, he had sealed them up. He was waiting for the right time to sell these things at a price that exceeded their original value. Although the risk was great, Lei Long firmly believed that there would be such a day. After witnessing today's miracle, he chose to believe in Chen Hao. Adding on the original spirit stones of the 30 guys, the wealth obtained this time is a total of 387 pieces of top-grade primordial crystal stones, 1.25 million high-grade primordial crystal stones, 4.2 million mid-grade primordial crystal stones, and 12 million low-grade primordial crystal stones. This is definitely equivalent to the consumption of all the disciples of a 7th-grade sect in 3 years. When I came out to train, Sect Master spat out blood and clenched his teeth, but he only gave me 100,000 mid-grade primal crystal stones. This is a classic example of getting rich overnight. I wonder if it's enough. Thinking of this, Chen Hao directly stepped into the cultivation room and merged his consciousness into his mind. It should be enough now, right? In terms of pure energy, it's barely enough. If you encounter the materials you need during the auction, I'm afraid it won't be enough. However, it's important to gather the materials first. I'll let you know if you need them. Primordial crystal stones are easy to get with your conditions. But the materials can only be found by chance. Some things, I'm afraid you'll have to gather them yourself. The voice of the mysterious existence appeared in Chen Hao's mind. Are you tricking me or not? So when I fuse, I don't need so much energy, and I don't need anything. Hearing the words of the mysterious existence, Chen Hao asked gloomily. So it's just awakening my lowest 2 stages of fusion, naturally I don't need anything. But when you step into the incarnation stage, fusion is the real first step. Once the fusion is successful, it will bring you benefits that no amount of wealth can exchange for. Then what benefits are there? Can you at least reveal some to me? I worked so hard to get so many primordial crystal stones, and it's such a waste. Waste? Alright, then I'll reveal a little to you. Don't you think it's a waste to open an immortal-grade pill furnace? There are countless pill formulas in it. As long as you can comprehend them, you can refine the corresponding elixir, and the success rate is 100 times higher than the so-called best-grade spirit treasures in this world. It will also allow you to improve the use of various kinds of energy in the process of refining elixirs. This is only one of its functions. Of course, this function will only become more powerful as your strength increases. So, maybe you don't have the concept. Let me give you an example. The Nirvana pill you ate, it's precious, right? In the cultivation world here, it's worth 100,000 middle-grade primordial crystal stones, right? You need at least a creation stage alchemist to refine it, right? But as long as you successfully fuse with me, now you can refine it as long as you have the materials. And the medicinal effect will be much better. Ah. Really? Of course it's true. Alright, then I'll believe you. There's one more thing to remind you. The legacy of the secular sword Tao is considered a good legacy. You can comprehend it more. Although it will affect your state of mind, it will definitely be good for your future cultivation. You don't need to remind me, I've already realized it. Alright, that's all. After Qin Hao finished speaking, he cut off the connection with the mysterious existence. In the beginning, Qin Hao tried his best to comprehend the inheritance of the secular sword principle, but every time, it made him feel uneasy. Distracting thoughts came one after another, and all kinds of emotions would come out of nowhere. This kind of feeling made him collapse. Qin Hao would rather suffer the pain of his soul than be immersed in these kinds of emotions. But now, with the understanding of the secular sword Tao, Qin Hao understood that even if he did not major in sword Tao, this thing was the existence that could improve his combat strength the most at present. Taking out 10 upper-grade primordial crystal stones at one time, Qin Hao immersed himself in cultivation and recovery. In the blink of an eye, it was the third day. Early in the morning, two figures in black robes and black bamboo hats walked out of the inn with the crowd. These two people were Qin Hao and Qin Shui, but at this moment, it was impossible to tell who they were from their appearance. Moreover, the two of them did not use the incantation to merge with all things in the world. They just walked with the crowd toward the Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce. Moreover, no one would notice. This was because there were too many people in the same attire as Qin Hao and Qin Shui. And it was obvious that they were all going for the auction. Especially at such a large-scale auction, many people would not reveal their true identities. Only those with strong backgrounds who were not afraid of being targeted would show their true faces. Not showing off one's wealth was one thing. Grudges and feuds were the most common things at auctions. In particular, it was very common for people who had won powerful treasures to be targeted and lose both their wealth and life. Fuck, I'm a few days late. I actually missed such a grand battle that spread the name of the Eastern Continent's immortal Tao. I can't believe that Qin Hao and Qin Shui are so powerful. How long has it been since the intersect competition? It's unbelievable. This kind of genius is not something we can measure. The sect leader valued him when he was still weak. He really has a good eye, haha. That's right. However, this Qin Hao is a bit too fickle. Our Yu, as well as Helian Wuzi and Tan Tai Lien from the star-picking sect, are already three obvious ones. Now there's Qin Shui, and she seems to be stronger than Yu. This isn't a good thing for our Ling Tian sect. What can we do? It's a waste of youth if he's not fickle. Moreover, you haven't seen Qin Shui. I'm afraid Qin Shui is not inferior to our Yu in any aspect. Unfortunately, Yu was brought to the limitless celestial palace. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. That's impossible, right? It's possible if you say Qin Shui's combat strength and talent surpass Yu. How can she compare to Yu's appearance? The hedgehog still thinks its son is smooth and smooth. Although it's just a metaphor, it's said that the two of them will appear at the auction this time. You'll know when you see them. I really hope they don't appear. Fuck, the Valley Master of the Coiling Dragon Valley in the Southern Sea Archipelago actually chased after Qin Hao and Qin Shui. Who knows what they'll do? What made Qin Hao and Qin Shui feel a little awkward was the two old men who were walking in front of them were actually discussing in a low voice. Although the voice was very low and suppressed within a certain range, if they hadn't obtained the God's Eye, the two of them definitely wouldn't have been able to hear it. But now, with the powerful senses of the God's Eye, they could clearly hear it. Fortunately, the two of them were not holding hands at this moment. Otherwise, their palms would be sweating. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 357. Little Shui, it looks like we're in trouble. What should we do? The Coiling Dragon Valley's Valley Master is probably an elite at the peak of the late-stage creation realm. We won't be able to hide our auras from him. Most importantly, you don't have the Guardian token. If he attacks you, we won't be able to do anything. We've killed 30 of their top prodigies, so he's probably angry from embarrassment. Even if he's wary of the Guardian token, he has many ways to deal with us. Qin Hao frowned and said, forget it, I think we shouldn't go to the auction. As long as we have the token, the pan fruit won't lose its effect. Let's just leave. Oh. Go directly to the central continent. They're probably monitoring the transportation formation. It's too obvious if we're together. Why don't we split up? I'll go first. 15 minutes later. No need. We won't leave through the transportation formation. We'll leave the city directly. The transportation formation is where the spies gather. There's no secret we can hide. Leave the city directly. You mean we'll train all the way? Yes. Although it's dangerous, it's better than being watched. Let's go. Let's go to a secluded place and hide. Otherwise, we'll be recognized. Very quickly, when the two of them followed the flow of people and reached a turn, the two of them suddenly increased their speed and walked into a hidden corner of a shop. Soon after, without anyone noticing, they directly turned into two gusts of wind. Lock on to those two. In a luxurious private room in the huge auction house, several old men sat inside. Each of them had an extremely powerful aura. Every time there was a young man or woman in the auction house, they would become the target of these old men. These old men were the important figures of the 10 sects of the Southern Sea Archipelago. The old man sitting in the middle was the Coiling Dragon Valley's Valley Master. Every old man's expression was extremely ugly. 30 top prodigies who represented the younger generation of the 10 sects of the Southern Sea Archipelago. How could they not be angry when Qin Hao and Qin Shui killed all of them? This was especially the case for the Valley Master of the Coiling Dragon Valley, who was absolutely livid. When he received the news, he was so enraged that he destroyed an entire mountain. After all, Yu Qingfeng and Yi Shanshui were the two disciples that he was most proud of. They were also the disciples that he took pride in and spent a lot of effort on. However, they were actually killed by Qin Hao one after another. Moreover, this time, Yi Shanshui was holding his upper-grade Earth-level spirit treasure, the Heavenly Eye. That was an Earth-level upper-tier spirit treasure. Even in the Coiling Dragon Valley, it was extremely precious. There are already more than 100 of them. Brother Jean, the difference between their auras and their realms is obviously too great. It shouldn't be. I'd rather kill 1,000 by mistake than miss one. No matter what, I have to catch this brat. 30. So what if Limitless Immortal Palace knew about it? As long as our 10 immortal Dao sects join forces, I don't believe that Limitless Immortal Palace can do anything to us. How can the top 30 geniuses of the younger generation die in vain? Alright then, at the entrance to the auction house. Young Master. When an imposing young man arrived at the entrance of the auction house, an old man immediately bowed in greeting. Are the two of them here yet? Not yet, young master. The Valley Master of the Coiling Dragon Valley has made such a big commotion. I'm afraid the two of them. If they're not here, they're probably going to the central continent. Let's wait and see. Where are their seats? I'll wait inside. Inform me immediately if there's any news. It'll be a pity if I can't get to know them. Yes, young master. Their pass numbers have already corresponded to the third Earth box. Young master, you're truly admirable for making friends with so many geniuses. Don't worry, young master. Even if they don't show up at this auction, they'll definitely come back to collect their gains in the future, the old man said respectfully. If Qin Hao were here, he would definitely recognize this old man as the appraiser who had received him at the Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce. This young man was famous in Emerald Smoke City. He was the eldest grandson of the president of the Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce, the young master of the Chamber of Commerce, and the successor of the next generation. He was not even 30 years old, but he was already a half-step primordial spirit realm cultivator. His combat strength was extremely terrifying, and he was known as the top young expert in Emerald Smoke City. Even a mid-stage primordial spirit realm expert was no match for him. Apart from his own talent, this naturally had to do with the Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce's powerful financial resources. Any piece of equipment he took off could crush an Avatar realm expert to death. 4 hours later. Hiss. Hiss. 2 faintly discernible gusts of wind suddenly stopped. Phew. What an evil aura. Is this an extraterrestrial demon beast? Qin Hao and Qin Shui, who had merged with all things in the world, stood in the void hand in hand as they sensed the terrifying aura in front of them. Extraterrestrial demon beasts were terrifying existences that the entire boundless continent had to defend against at all times. In the secular world and the cultivation world of the eastern continent, because the immortal Tao, demon Tao, and devil Tao had jointly set up a spatial region barrier, they were basically not attacked by the extraterrestrial demon beasts. However, every sex experts at the peak of the late incarnation realm and above had to work together to resist the extraterrestrial demon beast tide when it erupted. The immortal Tao, monster Tao, and demon Tao were no exception. It was just that Qin Hao and the other young disciples had not been able to catch up in time. But now, in a city like Emerald Smoke City, which was not protected by a regional barrier, extraterrestrial demon beast tides would often appear. It should be. Won't it be too dangerous for us to leave like this? Once a demon beast tide erupts, even if it's a third-grade one, the two of us won't be able to defend against it. Just be careful. According to the records, demon beast tides don't erupt so easily. Let's go and avoid these fellows. Let's leave Emerald Smoke City first. If those old creation realm fellows really chase after us, we'll be in big trouble. We've killed too many this time. Come, I'll carry you. Qin Hao said as he wrapped his arms around Qin Shui's slender waist. You. What are you doing? Qin Shui was so frightened that she hurriedly pushed Qin Hao and asked with a little panic. However, Qin Hao did not retreat or give way. He firmly held Qin Shui's small waist, which could be held with one hand, under his strong arms. It's important to hurry. Our speed is too far behind that of a creation realm expert. You rest first. I'll take you away. When I'm tired, it'll be your turn. Don't be embarrassed. What's our relationship? Qin Hao said with a serious expression. As he spoke, he increased his speed to the maximum. Qin Shui wanted to say something, but in the end, she did not say it. Not only that, she also had to forcefully control her heartbeat and breathing. She could not let Qin Hao feel that anything was wrong. However, her body still could not help but tense up. There was nothing she could do about it. So what if they were siblings? Besides, they were not related by blood. Besides, she had long since developed feelings for Qin Hao that went beyond the relationship between siblings. She could still remain calm when holding hands with Qin Hao, but to be so intimate with him, after all, she was a young girl, and she had never come into contact with any man before. If it was anyone else, they might not be able to bear it, right? Fortunately, Qin Hao really seemed to be rushing and did not have any other thoughts. Chen Shui also knew that if the two of them activated their energy to fly at the same time, their speed would indeed be a little faster for a short period of time, but only by a little. After all, to a cultivator, bringing a person with them was about the same as carrying a very light sword. The impact on speed was basically negligible. If the two of them took turns, they would be able to save time to rest. Their speed would at least be increased by a little. However, what Chen Shui did not know was, this waist is really thin, and it feels really good. It's much thinner than the one I encountered in the illusion. Chen Hao, who looked serious and seemed to be rushing with all his might, said a little evilly in his heart. He, who had begun to comprehend the secular sword Dao inheritance again, as long as his mind was integrated into the sword Dao inheritance, all kinds of illusions would appear. Moreover, the people in each illusion were people he knew and came into contact with. Sometimes, it was things from the previous life, and sometimes it was in this life. All kinds of illusions that disturbed one's state of mind seemed to be completely real. It was as if Chen Hao had obtained a new life and experienced the 7 emotions and 6 desires of the mortal world. In this situation, if it were not for Chen Hao's tenacious mind and strong soul, he would probably collapse and become a demon at any time. This was also the main reason why Chen Hao had not been willing to try to comprehend the secular sword Dao inheritance. And these 2 nights, there were illusions where Chen Shui was present. Illusions were born from the heart, and the secular sword Dao inheritance magnified any insignificant feelings in Chen Hao's heart by hundreds or thousands of times. It's just a little hard. No, this girl is nervous, Chen Hao secretly said. Smelling the faint virgin body fragrance on Chen Shui's body, and then thinking of Chen Shui's possible mood at the moment, Chen Hao was smug and wanted to tease her, but he still held back. He was afraid of poking through the layer of paper. Otherwise, if the relationship between the two of them heated up, what if he couldn't help it? 2 hours later, Chen Hao flew continuously in an extreme state. After consuming nearly half of his energy, he finally stopped, and it was Chen Shui's turn to fly with him in her arms. With the powerful soul perception ability, the two of them avoided cultivators and demon beasts from afar and did not stop. Half a month later, the two of them had flown at least 10 million miles and encountered countless terrifying foreign demonic beasts. Fortunately, the two of them were in a state where they had merged with everything in the world. Otherwise, with their cultivation bases, they would have died long ago. At this moment, even the two of them did not know where they were flying to. The information in the Guardian Order only recorded the city and the area near the city. The two of them flew such a long distance aimlessly, there was no record at all. What a beautiful valley. We have been flying for so long, we should be safe. The aura of the demon beasts in this 1,000-mile radius is not very strong. Why don't we go down and rest? Chen Shui gazed at the fairyland-like valley below and said. After flying continuously for half a month, even if the two of them took turns, their bodies and minds were exhausted to the limit. Okay. Anyway, we don't know where we are. The aura here is suitable for us to cultivate. Chen Hao replied. One update. Sigh, not only can I not fight for the 3rd update, I can't fight for the 2nd update either. I saw the doctor yesterday and went to the hospital today for a detailed examination, but the final results are not out yet. But the situation is definitely a little serious. The headache caused by the cervical vertebra is chest tightness, and there is a possibility of nervous breakdown. To be honest, Wu Shan really does not feel that the cervical vertebra is that bad. But the occupational disease should have already come. I will get the results tomorrow. After that, I will do a detailed treatment. The update can only be postponed. Yesterday, I promised that before the 10th of next month, I will double the amount. I am afraid that I will not be able to finish it before the 10th. I will tell you in advance. Brothers and sisters who can't wait, please take care of them first. I will catch my breath and recover. During this time, I will try my best to maintain 2 updates. If I can't maintain it, there is nothing I can do. I am really sorry, I can't really throw away my life just because of writing. I write slowly, sitting for 14 hours a day without moving is really too painful. Before the end of the world comes, I really don't want to die early. Chapter 358. In the valley, streams flowed, spring water gurgled, and vegetation grew on both sides of the valley. Green pines and cypresses, strange flowers and plants were everywhere. In the narrow and dangerous places, waterfalls could be seen everywhere. There were many natural caves on both sides, decorating the valley with an unusually mysterious and beautiful appearance. At the bottom of the valley, there was a lake with a radius of 3,000 meters. Looking down from above, it looked like a piece of green jade, emitting a sparkling light. Ah! Not good. The two of them had just descended for less than 1,000 meters when they cried out in alarm at the same time. A liquid-like, invisible, untouchable, and undetectable energy barrier actually blocked the two of them, and in an instant, the two of them seemed to have fallen into a quagmire. Chi. Chen Hao and Chen Shui activated their energy at the same time. Violent true essence rose from their bodies, wanting to blast away the strange energy that was sticking to their bodies. But what shocked the two of them even more was that after the true essence broke out of their bodies, it was like mud sinking into the sea. Not only did it not break, but the strange energy that was surrounding the two of them became even more powerful. It surged with an irresistible force that the two of them were like elastic ropes that tightly wrapped around the two of them. The two of them were originally holding hands, but at this moment, they directly became face to face with their bodies pressed against each other. Their faces and bodies, with a bang, collided with each other like two poles of a magnet. The terrifying force of the collision caused Chen Shui's peerlessly beautiful eyes to see stars. Her nose felt sour, and her heart was both terrified and shy. Because Chen Hao's mouth had already been tightly pressed together with her little mouth through her thin black veil. Their bodies were even more closely pressed together, and she could clearly feel that her cheeks and soft breasts were severely deformed, yet that terrifying force still pressed against her. Chen Shui's eyes could no longer see anything. She even suspected that her eyes had been crushed by Chen Hao's face, and her entire body felt like it was about to explode. Chen Shui had no choice but to gather all the strength in her body to resist this pressure. Chen Hao was also desperately activating his energy, but the more he did so, the tighter the binding force became. Chen Hao's physical body was several times stronger than Chen Shui's, so he naturally didn't feel as much pain as Chen Shui. However, he could clearly feel that Chen Shui's face, soft breasts, and body were about to be crushed by his own body. Xiao Shui, stop struggling. Restrain your true essence. Chen Hao was also frightened to the extreme, but the more frightened he was, the calmer his mind was. He clearly realized that after struggling for a while, Chen Shui was about to be crushed by him. Chen Hao suddenly withdrew all of his strength and sent a voice transmission to Chen Shui at the same time, anxiously saying. His voice even contained the clear heart technique of the evening drum and morning bell. He was afraid that Chen Shui had already fallen into madness. In such a situation, it would be better if he shouted out loud. However, Chen Hao had no choice but to transmit his voice. This was because their mouths had been completely stuffed. He couldn't see anything with his eyes. Only his mind could sense his surroundings. At this moment, if one were to look at the two of them from the outside, they would seem to have become conjoined twins. Chen Shui's entire body was squashed flat, as if she was stuck to Chen Hao's body. Fortunately, just as Chen Hao finished speaking, Chen Shui, who was frantically struggling, retracted her energy. What is this? I can't take it anymore. Could it be? Chen Shui's mind was clear as she transmitted her voice to Chen Hao with a trace of fear. In fact, if not for Chen Shui's soul being much stronger than ordinary people, she would have long fallen into madness or fainted from the pain of her body being squashed flat. Of course, if she had fainted earlier, she wouldn't be in such a miserable state now. Because after the two of them gave up struggling one after another, the squeezing force surrounding their bodies did not increase anymore. It only maintained the current state. It was obviously impossible for the two of them to separate. 9 Nether Frost Pool. Chen Shui and Chen Hao's voices resounded in their minds at the same time. That's right, it must be the 9 Nether Frost Pool. I didn't expect that we would accidentally encounter one of the top 10 mysterious lands of the boundless continent. Little Shui, you have to hold on. Heal your injuries first and don't care about anything else. Just take care of yourself and don't emit any energy. I'll think of a way. Chen Hao's mind was filled with intense shock and worry as he transmitted his voice to her. The 9 Nether Frost Pool, in the records of the boundless continent that Chen Hao had obtained, was one of the top 10 mysterious lands of the boundless continent. It was 6 million miles away from the nearest city, Dragon Cliff City. It was discovered by cultivators tens of thousands of years ago. When it was discovered, countless cultivators had already died in the barrier of the 9 Nether Frost Pool. The first cultivator who sent the news of the 9 Nether Frost Pool back to the cultivation world was lucky enough not to enter the barrier. He watched as his companions, who were several times stronger than him, exploded one by one from the pressure. After that, countless experts went to explore it, but no one succeeded. Not a single person who stepped into the barrier could come out. Even a few immortal supremacies had died in there. The supreme existences of the immortal Tao, the supreme existences of the demon Tao, and the supreme existences of the demon Tao, the supreme existences of the immortal Tao, the supreme existences of the demon Tao, sent out countless experts who were nearing the end of their lifespans and had no hope of advancing to the next realm to try. But in the end, they all died in the barrier and couldn't even pass through it. Not to mention entering it and coming out alive. Is there any other way? It was hard for Chen Shui not to feel despair. How could she and Chen Hao do something that the entire boundless continent couldn't crack for tens of thousands of years? Not to mention that their cultivation was only at the incarnation realm, even if they were at the creation realm, so what? I'm sorry, Chen. Little brother, I've harmed you. If I didn't want to rest here, this wouldn't have happened. Sorry my ass. Little brother my ass. Just follow me and heal your injuries. Persevere for as long as you can. If you can't persevere, you have to persevere with me. Remember to recite the words that I passed to you. Even if the rest of the world can't, it doesn't mean that we can't. Believe in yourself. Don't give up until the last moment. Do as I say. Chen Hao immediately swore and transmitted his voice to Bai Yunfei. His voice was unquestionable and domineering. Even though he knew that hope was so slim that it was close to none, how could Chen Hao give up? Even if he died, he had to die with a bang. How could he die so miserably? He still had a lot of things to do and a lot of goals to achieve. For the sake of his obsession, he didn't waste a single bit of time. He cultivated crazily for his goals at all times. In his previous life, he had stepped onto the peak of earth, but he had never enjoyed family, love, or friendship. In this lifetime, he possessed the qualifications to enjoy family, love, and friendship, but for the sake of his own obsession and goal, he didn't stop to enjoy it because he knew that in this cruel world where martial arts were respected, if he were to enjoy life at this moment, it would only be a flash in the pan, and it would be shattered and destroyed at any moment. This wasn't what he wanted. What he wanted was eternal brilliance, a happiness that no one could destroy. How could he die now? Chen Shui didn't speak anymore. It wasn't that she believed in Chen Hao, but she chose to believe and also chose to listen to Chen Hao's orders. She threw away all distracting thoughts and immersed herself in healing. She knew that if she didn't do so, it wouldn't take long for her to die here. Although she would die here in the end, as long as she didn't exhaust her energy and didn't struggle, she could prolong her life as much as possible. No one could save her. Once she fell into the barrier, even the palace master of Limitless Immortal Palace couldn't save her. No information or energy could be transmitted outside the barrier. What was the use of the will left in her mind by her mother? In this barrier, any aura would be blocked. The power of will couldn't be activated at all. Moreover, even if it could be activated, the final result would make her die faster. Any power that was released would be more violently applied to her body. This was the horror of this barrier. No matter the level of cultivation, it was the same treatment. This was basically a state of waiting for death, a fate that couldn't be escaped. However, she wanted to live a little longer. Because Chen Hao hadn't given up and was still with her. If Chen Hao could talk when he gave up, it would be good to wait for his energy to exhaust and die. Sensing that Chen Shui had truly entered the healing state, Chen Hao heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Of course, he was only relieved for Chen Shui. Whether he could succeed or not was unknown, and he didn't have any confidence at all. If he couldn't succeed in the end, it was just a matter of dying early or late. If he succeeded and Chen Shui died in front of him, he wouldn't be able to forgive himself. He was very clear that this was a dangerous situation that he had never encountered before, a dangerous situation that all the powerful people in the boundless world couldn't understand and solve. But he was confident. Until the last moment, he was confident. Moreover, the mysterious existence in his mind had already recognized the nature of the barrier. Phew. Chen Hao let out a long sigh of relief in his heart, threw away all the distracting thoughts, and asked in his mind, "What is the Qi of Origin?" This was the name that the mysterious existence said in shock in Chen Hao's mind after Chen Hao merged into the barrier. Qi of Origin, as the name suggests, is the Qi of origin of this world. It is the foundation of this world. In the universe, there are countless planets, and every planet's Qi of origin is different. And this barrier is formed by the Qi of origin of this world. If I'm not wrong, the valley within the barrier is one of the primordial spaces of this world, the mysterious existence said in a deep voice. In that case, Qi of origin is the highest and most advanced energy in this world. Primordial space, which is the initial embryonic state of this world. It can't be described as energy. To be exact, it's not energy. It's just the origin, which covers the essence of everything in this world, the origin of everything. Primordial space is the initial form of this world. The origin of everyone in this world, any living thing or non-living thing, is it. It's the origin of all existence in this world. As long as one belongs to this world, it's basically impossible to break it, unless one's cultivation is high enough to destroy this world. Otherwise, one will always be bound by the origin, the mysterious existence said. Try to write the second chapter before 12 o'clock. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian.com to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 359. However, you're an exception. Because you don't belong here, your origin isn't here. You don't need to have the ability to destroy this world. As long as you can comprehend the mystery of this Qi of origin, this barrier won't be able to trap you. However, I'm afraid it'll take a long time. Even if your comprehension is high, it'll probably take a year and a half. The mysterious existence said in a heavy voice. Obviously, in the face of this predicament, although he understood, he was helpless. His ability rose according to Chen Hao's ability. At this moment, because Chen Hao had not merged further after stepping into the incarnation realm, his ability was even more limited. A year and a half. I can't even move my fingers now, how can I hold on for so long? The mysterious existence's words increased the pressure on Chen Hao by 1,000 times. At this moment, even if he restrained all his energy, the most basic consumption was still there. And he couldn't take out primordial crystal stones and spirit spring to replenish his energy. How long could this last? Moreover, Chen Hao was very clear that under this so-called Qi of origin, not only was he unable to refine and absorb any energy of heaven and earth, but the energy in his body was constantly being devoured. Even if he completely restrained it, it was impossible for there not to be any leakage of energy. 3 days was already his limit. After many people entered, they could only watch helplessly as their energy ran out and died. I can urge the spirit spring and primordial crystal stones to provide energy to you. It shouldn't be a problem to last for half a year. If you can't comprehend it before the energy runs out, then the consequences will be unimaginable. Also, if you still want to provide energy to Chen Shui, you can only last for less than 2 months. She's affected by the origin and her energy consumption will be much faster than you. How to choose, you decide. The mysterious existence said. During this period of contact, he already understood Chen Hao very well. If he didn't tell him the seriousness of the problem, it was impossible for Chen Hao to give up on Chen Shui. Moreover, he was also clear that even if he said so, the possibility of Chen Hao giving up on Chen Shui was very small. There's no need to choose. I'll start to comprehend now. You and I look after her. Once her energy is about to run out, wake me up immediately. If she wants to die, then she'll die. If she wants to live, then she'll live. I, Chen Hao, disdain to live alone. This is an order. If you dare to disobey, I will kill myself. Hiss. After Chen Hao finished speaking, he did not give the mysterious existence a chance to persuade him. He directly threw away all distracting thoughts and immersed himself in the comprehension without any distractions. Time was everything. He believed that since he had said so, the mysterious existence had no reason to resist him. Until now, Chen Hao still didn't know what kind of existence the mysterious existence was. However, he knew that his goal was to let him step into a realm that his previous masters could not reach. If he died, it would mean that he would fall into the next cycle of reincarnation. He did not know how many years he would have to wait before he could find a new master. How dare he disobey him? His mind merged into the chi of origin that bound his body bit by bit. Chen Hao's brain became empty, but it was operating at a high speed that he had never experienced before. It was like a super-powerful computer, precisely calculating any subtle fluctuations of the chi of origin and grasping the mysteries within. Chen Shui's mind was chanting the primary outline of the Great Tao like the evening drum and morning bell. She was multitasking, and at the same time, she was repairing her body that was instantly crushed by the barrier. Time passed by minute, and the vital essence in Chen Shui's dantian became less and less. However, her physical body was recovering at an astonishing speed. Under this mentality of certain death, Chen Shui put down all the baggage, all distracting thoughts, and achieved the true state of thoughtlessness. This made the primary outline of the Great Tao, which she only felt a little effect, exert an amazing effect at this moment. 4 hours, it only took 4 hours. Usually, it would take at least 10 days to half a month to recover her physical body without the help of elixirs. However, it magically returned to normal. The beautiful face that was almost squashed by Chen Hao regained its former vigor. Moreover, in this state of restraining energy and trying not to let the energy leak out, although she and Chen Hao were still close together, they were no longer in a squashed state. She could clearly feel Chen Hao's state. What made her slightly surprised was that at this moment, Chen Hao's aura did not seem to be consumed in the slightest. It was still in a full state. However, she only had less than 40% of her energy left. Moreover, even though she was in a completely restrained state, her energy was still rapidly depleting. At this rate, she would run out of energy in less than a day. She could feel the mental fluctuations emitted by Chen Hao. It was a kind of fluctuation with a high frequency that she could not imagine. It was obvious that Chen Hao was comprehending the mystery of this barrier. She did not dare to disturb him. She could only quietly feel him close to her body and feel her energy depleting bit by bit. Time passed by minute. Chen Hao's energy was still full, but Chen Shui's energy was decreasing bit by bit. Was she going to die from exhaustion? Perhaps he could really break through the barrier. All kinds of thoughts, as Chen Shui felt her life depleting, entered her mind. She did not know why Chen Hao's energy was always full, but she knew that if Chen Hao could really maintain this state, he could really break through the barrier. However, she was afraid that she would not be able to see it. She had a lot of things that she wanted to tell Chen Hao. She had a lot of secrets that she wanted to tell Chen Hao. However, she still restrained herself and did not disturb Chen Hao. If he could walk out of the barrier, why would she need to say those meaningless words? These words, she could only say if Chen Hao wanted to quietly wait for death with her. Although it was also meaningless, at least the two of them would die together without any secrets. Gently sighing in her heart, Chen Shui's mouth revealed a calm and relieved smile. She was praying for him. She was also recalling everything that had happened since she knew him, the first time, when she first stepped into the cultivation world, the disciple of the 100 Empire ranking went to the Endless Sea to gain experience. Because of curiosity and also because she was not afraid, her other identity became his scapegoat. When she saw him for the first time, how did she feel? At that time, she did not understand. Now, she understood, just like when Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu met for the first time. Some things were destined by fate, the feeling that arose from the first time they met. When she did not know her true identity, she discovered that his father was the person that her master had been searching for over 100 years. This made her secretly happy. She had always been competing with him in every aspect. One reason was because of her arrogant personality that did not admit defeat. The other reason was because of an indescribable feeling in her heart. Later on, she met him with her real identity. The first time they held hands, the first time they hugged, the first time they kissed. If flying while hugging each other in order to speed up their journey counted as hugging, then being forced to stick together at this moment counted as kissing, then her first time was taken by Chen Hao. There were many, many regrets. She had yet to truly merge into her true self. She had yet to lift her veil in front of him and reveal her most beautiful self. She had yet to fulfill her mother's wish. She had yet to see her father who made her feel complicated, but to be able to die in his arms like this, and to be in such close contact and even kiss, more or less, it could be considered a kind of consolation, right? As her thoughts ran wild, Chen Shui became weaker and weaker. Her thoughts became slower and slower. Only the heat from Chen Hao's body made her feel a trace of warmth. Her energy is about to run out, the voice of the mysterious existence, carrying a trace of confusion and depression, quietly appeared in the mind of Chen Hao, who was immersed in his comprehension. Chen Shui, whose consciousness had already become a little fuzzy due to the exhaustion of her energy, suddenly felt her lips being forcefully separated by the black veil. Little Shui, focus your mind. I will imbue you with energy. That, if you want to take the sky bridge, hurry up. Don't hide, and don't be embarrassed. We have no choice. At the same time, Chen Hao's voice resounded in her mind. Faintly, Chen Shui could feel the confusion in Chen Hao's voice. Don't hide. How could she have the strength to hide? Don't be embarrassed. She, who had already sunk into a muddle-headed state, how could she know how to be embarrassed? Their tongues touched. Even though there was a thin veil between them, Chen Hao's mind trembled, and his entire body was filled with blood. As for Chen Shui, only a trace of ripple appeared in her heart. Her delicate body, which was almost ice-cold and stiff, could not be excited. Hiss hiss. Pure and majestic true origin instantly passed through Chen Hao and into Chen Shui's body. After a moment, Chen Shui, who had received the replenishment of energy, the speed of her blood circulation gradually increased. Her mind was also quickly refining the unstoppable true origin. But, most of her mind was focused on her small mouth. She did not dare to move at all, and she could not move at all. Her fragrant tongue, which was supposed to be slippery and agile, was stiff and numb as it received Chen Hao's energy. Don't be distracted, use all your strength to refine. Chen Hao's voice sounded again. This caused Chen Shui, who was gradually becoming lively, to be extremely shy. But immediately, she forcefully focused her mind and quickly refined the vigorous and pure true origin that Chen Hao passed to her, turning it into her own energy, more than 10 minutes later. I'll comprehend first. You can't comprehend this barrier, so don't try. Restrain yourself and reduce the consumption to the minimum. Wait for me. Don't ask, wait until we get out, I'll explain to you. Chen Shui did not have time to think as Chen Hao poured more and more energy into her. She could only refine with all her strength. But when her energy had just reached a full state, Chen Hao did not give her a chance to ask and directly said. After he finished speaking, he once again immersed himself in comprehension. In fact, Chen Hao's mind was completely multitasking. He did not stop comprehending, but only separated a part of his mind to pour energy into Qin Shui, minimizing the consumption. His energy is always in a full state, but he did not absorb the energy of heaven and earth. Could it be, she used a secret technique to absorb the energy of the primordial crystal stones or spirit spring that he brought? How long can this consumption last? Can he comprehend in the time that it lasts? When Qin Hao once again immersed himself in comprehension, various thoughts appeared in Qin Shui's mind. In a moment, she knew that she had become a burden to him. I got the results today. Fortunately, it's not as serious as the doctor said the day before yesterday. But the problem is not small. He prescribed a bunch of medicine for oral consumption and a tractor to hang his head up and stretch his neck and cervical spine. Every day, he has to hang himself 3 times. Once every 2 days, he has to go to physiotherapy and use something to warm himself up for half an hour. These few days, Dark Mountain cooperates with the treatment, so he can't sit for too long. He can only try to write as much as possible. Chapter 360. What should she do? Death. If she could, Qin Shui would not hesitate. However, she did not dare and could not do so. She didn't dare to, because if she were to use her energy to self-destruct, she would probably destroy Qin Hao, who was close to her. She couldn't, because if she couldn't self-destruct, she could only wait for her energy to run out. However, when she ran out of energy, she could not reject Qin Hao's infusion of energy. Furthermore, based on her understanding of Qin Hao would not abandon her. The only thing she could do was to follow Qin Hao's instructions and reduce her energy consumption as much as possible. Phew, Qin Shui heaved a long sigh of relief in her heart. She completely retracted her mind and threw away all distracting thoughts as she immersed herself in her energy center. The energy, essence, spirit, and consciousness in her body began to converge towards her energy center. At the same time, she continued to recite the abstruse outline of the Great Tao in her mind. Gradually, the energy that naturally flowed out of her body became less and less. She became weaker and weaker, and her energy consumption also decreased. Her aura became weaker and weaker, as if she had entered a deep hibernation state. There were only the mysterious characters floating in her mind, and there was not a trace of distracting thoughts. Hiss hiss hiss, Qin Shui and Qin Hao were in a race against time. One was immersed in comprehension while the other was immersed in restraint. After 3 whole days, 6 figures flew over. There were 3 males and 3 females. The 3 females were all rare beauties. Of the 3 youths, one of them was handsome and had an imposing appearance. As for the other 2 youths, one of them was unusually tall and had a rough appearance. He had a wild aura. The other was short and fat. However, without exception, they were all extremely young and had reached the half-step primordial soul stage. The aura around them was even stronger than the previous one. Especially the handsome youth who stood in front of them was obviously the leader of the 6. What a beautiful valley! Is this the legendary 9th Hell Frosty Pool? One of the pretty girls who was holding the youth's arm said as she looked down. Her eyes shone with excitement. Yes, this is the 9th Hell Frosty Pool. Everyone, don't go any closer. The barrier is 3,000 meters below. The 9 Nether Frost Pond was one of the 10 most dangerous places. Although it is not the strongest of the 10 great danger grounds, it is even more mysterious and terrifying than the Thunder Punishment Mountain Range, which is ranked first. The imposing young man had a faint smile on his face as he squinted his eyes and stared at the 9 Nether Frost Pool beneath him. The reason why the aura of the demon beasts in this area is so weak is because of the existence of the 9th Hell Frosty Pool. It was so beautiful that anyone who saw it, even if they were demonic beasts, would be uncontrollably attracted to it and be buried in it. What's even stranger is that, you can sense it carefully. Don't you feel a faint sense of summoning? Indeed, if we didn't come here specifically to see the 9 Underworld's Frost Pond, but encountered it by chance, and didn't realize that this was the 9 Underworld's Frost Pond, what would you do? This. I will definitely go down and take a look. Phew. Brother Lin, let's hurry up and leave. If we keep watching, I might not be able to resist the urge to jump down. I have the same feeling. The other young men and women also agreed. When they thought of the legend of the 9 frozen pools, their eyes revealed a trace of fear. So beautiful. Brother Hao, I really want to go down and take a look. What's that? The first girl to speak was attracted by the beautiful and illusory 9 underworld's frost pond as she spoke. Just as she was speaking, she suddenly seemed to have seen something. Her eyes abruptly opened wide as she pointed down and exclaimed in surprise. It's 2 people, Hearing the girl's words, everyone's gazes followed the direction of the girl's finger. Exerting their vision, they instantly saw 2 motionless figures that were tightly pressed together. The pupils of the imposing young man suddenly constricted as he seemed to have thought of something. He said, could it be them? Who? The imposing young man took a deep breath and said, before we came, I intended to invite the 2 people who came with us. Chen Hao and Chen Shui. Everyone was shocked in their hearts. This imposing young man was none other than the young master of the Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce, the #1 expert of the younger generation in Emerald Smoke City, Lin Hao. The 5 people beside him were all outstanding figures of the younger generation in Emerald Smoke City. After carefully sizing them up for a moment, Lin Hao's expression carried a trace of regret as he shook his head and said, it should be them, what a pity. Although he had missed the battle between Chen Hao and Chen Shui and the 30 peerless geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands and hadn't seen the 2 of them, he had learned of their appearances from the appraiser. At this moment, the 2 of them were dressed in black and their faces couldn't be seen. However, Chen Shui, who was wearing a black veil, and the silhouette of the 2 of them were exactly the same as the illusions condensed by the appraiser. When he recalled that the 2 of them hadn't left through the teleportation formation, he confirmed his guess. Let's go. Don't look anymore. Seeing the shocked expressions of everyone, Lin Hao hurriedly said. He was very clear that if they continued to stay, they would probably lose control, and he was no exception. This was because the 9 underworld's frost pond would cause the desire in one's heart to become stronger and stronger as one stared at it. In the end, it would evolve into an unstoppable force. They had specially come here this time just to experience it and didn't want to die here. Let's go. Hiss. The 6 figures swayed as they resisted the urge to take another look and turned around to leave. All of them headed to the nearest Dragon Cliff City. Although Lin Hao wanted to get to know Chen Hao and Chen Shui, he had no intention of saving them. It was not that he didn't want to, but he couldn't. There was no one in the world who could save them. She actually held on for 5 days. When he received the mysterious existence's reminder again, Chen Hao was multitasking. He continued to comprehend while instilling energy into Chen Shui. What surprised him was that Chen Shui actually held on for 5 full days under the mysterious primary outline of the Great Path before her energy was depleted. This was completely beyond the expectations of the mysterious existence and Chen Hao. One must know that even if Chen Hao wasn't affected by the origin, he definitely wouldn't be able to hold on for 5 days if the mysterious existence didn't continuously provide him with energy. Moreover, what surprised Chen Hao even more was that at this moment, Chen Shui was still immersed in a deep level of silence and didn't wake up even after he instilled energy into her. Could it be because of the primary outline of the Great Path? Chen Hao pondered as he sensed the mysterious and extremely restrained aura in Chen Shui's elixir field. Based on Chen Hao's understanding of Chen Shui, it seemed that other than the unknown mysterious power of the primary outline of the Great Path, there was nothing else that could make Chen Shui enter such a state. This made Chen Hao look forward to it. For the past few days, he had tried his best and his brain was constantly calculating and grasping the mystery of the barrier. However, he couldn't understand it at all. It could be said that there was no progress at all. It felt as if he had encountered the solitary sword technique that was 100 or 1,000 times stronger than him. It was constantly changing irregularly and Chen Hao couldn't figure it out at all. The primary outline of the Great Path is the origin of the Great Path. The 3,000 Great Paths originated from the primary outline of the Great Path. And this primordial chi is the unique origin of this world. Origin against origin. Yes, it must be so. The mystery of this barrier is just like the primary outline of the Great Path. I can't grasp any clues at all. Maybe the mystery of the primary outline of the Great Path can help me comprehend it. Thinking of this, Chen Hao's strand of mind didn't join the comprehension anymore. Instead, he directly began to recite the primary outline of the Great Path. Compared to Chen Hao's recitation of the primary outline of the Great Path was naturally much stronger. In a moment, the sound of the evening drum and morning bell resounded in Chen Hao's mind. As he recited, he comprehended the mystery of the barrier. He still couldn't comprehend it and couldn't sense any abnormalities. However, Chen Hao didn't stop reciting and repeated it over and over again. As time passed, the speed and rhythm of Chen Hao's recitation gradually began to have an imperceptible change. The characters seemed to be in sync with the mysterious frequency of the barrier and produced a slight resonance. Although it wasn't obvious, it was caught by Chen Hao. Although Chen Hao still didn't comprehend the slightest bit, this slight change made Chen Hao overjoyed. He knew that he was in the right direction. In the blink of an eye, 6 months passed by in a hurry. Chen Hao's consumption became less and less. From 5 days after the first infusion by Chen Hao, it continued to be extended. The second time was 7 days, and then it could be extended a little each time. In a full 6 months, Chen Hao only instilled 17 times. If not for this, the primordial crystal stones and spirit spring stored in Chen Hao's mind space would have been exhausted 3 months ago. After all, although the mysterious existence could refine the energy of the primordial crystal stones and spirit spring and transfer it to Chen Hao, it was an extremely complicated and wasteful process. Less than 1,000th of it could be used. According to the mysterious existence's estimation, if Chen Hao was alone, he could support himself for a year just by relying on the primordial crystal stones. When he told Chen Hao that he could only support himself for half a year, it was just to give Chen Hao more pressure. Because he knew that Chen Hao was the kind of person who could explode more the more pressure he was under. However, he didn't expect Chen Shui to be able to reduce her consumption to such an extent. After supporting the two of them for half a year, the primordial crystal stones had just been exhausted. Only the spirit spring is left. This spirit spring can be used at the end. Once the spirit spring is used up, it can't be used again. So, Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, Black Tortoise, Qilin, all of you come over. In Chen Hao's mind, the 5 divine beasts, treasure-hunting sword spirit, Ito Tai, and the mysterious existence that vaguely looked like an old man were all standing around the spirit spring. At this moment, the mysterious existence glanced at the 5 divine beasts and said, Ito Tai was only a remnant soul and didn't have any energy to provide. Although the treasure-hunting sword spirit contained a huge amount of energy, in Chen Hao's mind, it was the second in line. The mysterious existence naturally wanted to start with the 5 divine beasts, who had the lowest status. To be continued. Chapter 361. Of course, it was not to erase them. It was only to release their energy by removing their fusion with Chen Hao. As long as Chen Hao could survive this crisis, they could merge again in the future. Yes. The 5 divine beasts swayed and arrived in front of the mysterious existence. Immediately, they formed the 5 divine beast marks and began to circulate slowly. The mysterious existence formed a series of mysterious runes that enveloped the 5 divine beasts. Majestic and vigorous energy suddenly emitted from the 5 divine beasts, and under the control of the mysterious existence, it constantly replenished Chen Hao's consumption. In the 7th month, the 5 divine beasts became 5 fist-sized divine beast marks. There was no more energy to be extracted, and they also lost all connection with Chen Hao. The treasure-hunting sword spirit also bravely sacrificed itself. The mysterious existence could only begin to sacrifice the spirit spring, and he became more and more worried. Only the spirit spring is left. I have already set up a Qiankuan spirit gathering formation for this spirit spring, and its efficiency is 100 times higher than the Yuan crystal stones. But it is still too little. At most, it can last for a month. Is Qinhao really going to die here? Even the mysterious existence did not expect the qi of origin of this world to be so difficult to comprehend. He was very clear about how strong Qinhao's comprehension was. But it had already been 7 months, and it had far exceeded his expectations. Qinhao's current state was even more mysterious. Even he did not know how far he had progressed, and when he would succeed. 3 days later, 1/10 of the spirit spring had been consumed. 6 days later, 2/10 of the spirit spring had been consumed. The mysterious existence became more and more worried. But just as the 7th day began, a buzzing tremor suddenly sounded in Qinhao's mind. Buzz buzz. Accompanied by the vast and magnificent chanting that sounded like the evening drum and morning bell, Qinhao's mind, which had fused with the barrier, seemed to have become one with every syllable and the mysteries of the barrier. From the initial subtle resonance to the current violent tremor, the quantitative change finally reached a qualitative change. Qinhao had been waiting for this moment for a long time. He could clearly sense the disappearance of the auras of the 5 divine beasts and the treasure-hunting sword spirit. He also knew that this was the final moment. In 7 months and 6 days, Qinhao's arms had already completely embraced Qin Shui in his embrace. He had made all the necessary preparations. He had been waiting for this moment to come. The violent tremors seemed to have no pattern, and there were thousands of changes in an instant. However, every single tremor appeared clearly in Qinhao's mind. There was still no pattern, but because of the profound Grand Tao outline, they were all within Qinhao's foresight. Qinhao's mind was fully utilized at that instant, as he was multitasking. Finally, the moment a huge shock arrived, Qinhao, who had been in peak condition all this time, the energy around his body skyrocketed in an instant. Moreover, at a terrifying speed, he violently used the technique of 4 ounces against 1,000 caddies, following the frequency and direction of the shock waves. Rumble. With an explosive sound, Qinhao, who was holding Qin Shui, suddenly turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the barrier in 1,000th of a second before the rebound force arrived. Ah! Qinhao, who'd passed through the barrier and stepped into the 9th hell wintry pool, suddenly looked up into the sky and let out a long howl that was clear, excited, and filled with boundless venting. His howl surged like continuous thunderclaps, and it shook the entire gorge to the point of lightly trembling. Numerous pieces of shattered rocks rolled down from the nearby mountain, and the small lake that was tranquil like the surface of a mirror had numerous ripples that were suffused with sparkling and translucent sprays of water. From ancient times until now, no one had broken the tranquility. Finally, Qinhao broke it. Ha ha ha! After a full 2 minutes of howling, Qinhao's excited and wild laughter rang out. 7 months and 6 days, more than half a year's time, this was definitely the most pressure Qinhao had ever endured. He didn't dare to relax for a moment, and was constantly in a high level of comprehension. If it were anyone else, their nerves would have collapsed. If it were Qinhao himself, he would have been able to pass through the barrier 3 months ago. But because of Qin Shui, he had to make the resonance wave become bigger and bigger. Only in this way could he create enough space for him and Qin Shui to pass through at the same time. At this moment, Qinhao was holding Qin Shui, who had entered the state of hibernation. How could he not be excited? Death, according to legend, anyone who entered the barrier in this world would die, but he succeeded. Not only did he succeed in entering one of the 10 perilous lands, but he also brought Qin Shui in. The 9 Nether Cold Pond, one of the 10 perilous lands in the boundless world, was located in the origin space. Heaven and earth were filled with a vast and majestic ancient aura, and the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was extremely dense. What was more amazing was that the spiritual qi of heaven and earth here could be directly absorbed without any refining. Moreover, it was the purest origin energy of various attributes. What was the Holy Land of Cultivation? This was it. The so-called Holy Land of Cultivation in the cultivation world, including the miniature heavenly abode in the Sky City, was completely incomparable to this place. Chen Hao's powerful soul perception spread out. The entire space was within Chen Hao's perception. Strange flowers, strange grasses, spirit herbs, spirit trees, even the gravel that had just rolled down from the mountain contained extremely pure energy. The icy azure lake was filled with a dense and pure energy aura. Phew! In more than 7 months, all my losses will be recovered from here 10 times, 100 times. Chen Hao let out a long breath, looked at the entire space, and said excitedly in his heart. Immediately, he looked at Qin Shui, who was like a docile and well-behaved kitten in his arms. Little Shui can actually enter such a deep level of restraint, it's really inconceivable. Fortunately, she has reached this state, otherwise, her energy would not have been able to last until now. Let's first replenish her energy, and then wake her up. Thinking of this, Chen Hao's figure flashed and came to the lakeside, where there was a large stone that was more round and sparkling than jade, and gently put Chen Shui on it. At this moment, Chen Shui's energy was almost depleted. She was obviously in an extremely weak state. If she hadn't come in yet, then it was time to replenish her energy. Lying flat on the large stone, Chen Shui's soft breasts were tall and straight, and the black robe could not cover her graceful and exquisite body. The thin veil clung to her beautiful face, and her eyes were closed, as if she was in a deep sleep, emitting a temptation that no man could resist. He, Chen Hao, who was in a good mood, unscrupulously admired her for a full 2 minutes, and the corner of his mouth hooked up into a slightly devilish arc, and he chuckled. At this moment, he could move as usual, and no longer had to worry about the barrier's restraint, and he had 100 ways to instill energy into Qin Shui. But after experiencing this life and death crisis, he did not think of any other methods, and directly leaned down, and pressed on Qin Shui's body. There was no ambiguity. Eyebrows to eyebrows, nose to nose, big mouth to small mouth, strong chest muscles to soft but elastic twin peaks. Can't he enjoy the wine today, but can't he enjoy the charm for a short time? He was lucky to survive this time. What if he died? That would be too unjust, too unwilling, too tragic. Feeling the fullness and firmness under his body, Chen Hao secretly praised in his heart, knowing that Qin Shui could not feel anything at this moment, which made this guy as bold as a tiger. Not only did he press on her, but he also rubbed back and forth a few times. Until he was afraid that he could not control himself, then he finally stopped. Gently opening his mouth, he decisively separated Qin Shui's delicate lips. Still separated by the veil. In fact, Chen Hao really wanted to take off Qin Shui's veil, and really look at Qin Shui's face, but this kind of desire was forcefully suppressed by him. Because, although he did not know the reason, he knew that this veil must have an extraordinary meaning to Qin Shui. Otherwise, why would Qin Shui hide their relationship with a veil? And Chen Hao also knew that this veil was not an ordinary veil. This was Qin Shui's secret, and it was a secret that could not be told to him. Soon, he touched Qin Shui's smooth and soft tongue. Different from when they were in the barrier, this time, although he did not get Qin Shui's response, this guy enjoyed it for a while with the veil between them. It felt good. If he took off the veil, it would feel even better, right? That's for sure. Unfortunately, it could only stop here. They kissed for another 3 minutes. Chen Hao, who did not want to play with fire, finally began to do business. He quickly poured energy into Qin Shui's body. After a while, Chen Hao urged his mind, integrated into Qin Shui's mind, and began to call out. Little Shui, wake up, we are out. Out. Are we out? Are we really out? Qin Shui, who was in a state of deep restraint, seemed to be half asleep and half awake. Under Chen Hao's shouts that had the effect of shaking the soul, she stopped chanting like the evening drum and morning bell and said in her mind. Wake up, wake up. Chen Hao naturally could not hear Qin Shui's self-talk in her mind, and kept shouting. After a while, Qin Shui finally completely woke up, and the first thing she felt was Chen Hao's heavy body, and the state she was in with him, kissing. At the same time, she also sensed the surrounding aura. Are you awake? That's great. Ha! We just came in. Chen Hao caught Chen Shue's aura, and just at the moment when Chen Shue opened her eyes, he jumped up and said. In Chen Shue's mind, it was as if the two were still in the state of fusion, and had just stepped into this place, and had not had time to separate. Chen Shue slowly opened her beautiful eyes, as if she couldn't wake up from that deep level of hibernation. Her eyes were squinted, as if a strong light was piercing her eyes. She saw Chen Hao standing in front of her, the little face that was like a sleeping baby gradually turned into surprise, and her eyes opened wider and wider. Immediately, they shone with strong surprise, and she jumped up with an, "Ah!" What made Chen Hao surprised was that Chen Shue, who seemed to be in disbelief and too surprised, actually threw herself into his arms, tightly, hugging him. Her arms circled around Chen Hao's neck, her legs wrapped around Chen Hao's waist, and she used all her strength, as if she wanted to merge into Chen Hao's body, or as if she was afraid that if she did not use enough strength, the Chen Hao in front of her would disappear. Author's note: there is no such thing as fairness in the world, it is all about mutual deception, and the weak are prey to the strong. Even if you have a righteous heart, you will still be bullied by others. If you do not want to be bullied, you have to create a world for yourself. I want to break the rules, ethics, and order, and build a world that belongs to my heart. Book number 2457289. Chapter 362. Xiao Shui, don't be agitated, it's all right now, Papa. Chen Hao patted Chen Shue's back and said with a bit of hesitation. He accidentally patted her perky buttocks. At this moment, Chen Hao's figure was as straight as a sword, and Chen Shue was wrapped around Chen Hao's body. More importantly, Chen Shue used so much force that even though righteous and clean, Chen Hao couldn't help but think of a certain classic posture when doing something. Chen Shue, who thought that she was going to die, seemed to be very excited, so excited that she couldn't control herself. Even when Chen Hao patted her sensitive perky buttocks, she didn't have any reaction. She only knew that she used all her strength to hug him, holding her breath, and her delicate body trembled. Only when she used up her breath did she raise her head slightly and stare straight at Chen Hao. Her expression was extremely strange, with surprise and excitement, but more than that, she was still confused. She didn't say a word. Silly. Chen Hao was speechless by Chen Shue's stare. He reached out and pinched Chen Shue's face. Was this girl still sleepwalking? Ah! Just when Chen Hao's hand reached Chen Shue's face, Chen Shue, who was separated by a veil, suddenly grabbed Chen Hao's hand, opened her cherry mouth, and bit down with her fine silver teeth shining with snow-white crystals. This made Chen Hao cry out exaggeratedly. Is this real? Is this real? Chen Shue finally spoke. Nonsense, why don't you bite yourself and see if it's real? Chen Hao said as he pulled out his hand that was covered with teeth marks and saliva. I really don't know if this is an illusion. I feel like I've been sleeping in an illusion for a very, very long time. I can't tell if this is real or not, an illusion or reality. Am I still the original me? I feel like I'm no longer the original me, but it also feels like I'm the original me. Is this real? Is this really real? I don't know. What caused Chen Hao's eyes to open wide was that Chen Shue stared at him, yet seemed to be talking to herself as she nagged a great deal, and it seemed like she was interrogating Chen Hao, yet it also seemed like she was talking to herself. In short, she still couldn't figure out if this scene was real or not. Wasn't this a little too exaggerated? She was such a beautiful and intelligent girl. Why did it seem like water had entered her head? He had clearly woken up, so how could he not figure it out? How many is this? Chen Hao stretched out 2 fingers and waved them in front of Chen Shue and asked. 2. How many is this? Chen Hao switched from his left hand to his right hand, and still held out 2 fingers. 2. Not 2 either. Chen Hao muttered and asked again, Who am I? Chen Hao, my younger brother. Don't ask such stupid questions. I just can't figure it out. Is this really real? Oh. When Qin Shui was about to ask the same question again, Qin Hao decisively took action. He suddenly hugged Qin Shui, opened his mouth and blocked Qin Shui's small mouth through the veil. This was necessary, and it was his duty. If he didn't give her some stimulation, how could she wake up? Anyway, the two of them had been kissing for more than half a year. Although the environment had changed from passive to active, but the essence was the same. He had already set a precedent, so what was there to be afraid of? What was there to be conflicted about? It seems that you are still too weak. Cooperate with me obediently, and I will replenish your energy. You are sick, and you have to be cured. Qin Hao rudely stopped Qin Shui from struggling, and at the same time, he wildly parted Qin Shui's delicate lips and touched her fine silver teeth. After failing no matter what, Qin Hao sent a voice transmission in a righteous manner. Boom! What Qin Hao didn't know was that at this moment, perhaps because of Qin Hao's sudden action, Qin Shui was frightened. In the depths of her mind, a layer of dazzling transparent bubbles suddenly exploded. At this moment, Qin Shui felt as if she had walked out of a nightmare. Her mind and body finally became one. Her beautiful eyes were wide open, and there was a trace of panic, a trace of shyness, and a trace of surprise. Panic caused her to be at a loss, shyness caused her entire body to go limp, and shock caused her to open her small mouth. Thus, Qin Hao successfully broke through her defenses and came into contact with that smooth, nimble, and sweet tongue. How could it feel so good? How could it be so good? There was clearly a thin veil, but at this moment, it actually felt as if it didn't exist. In the blink of an eye, it made Qin Hao forget what he wanted to do, and immersed himself in this wet kiss that was countless times more intoxicating than the previous few times. Qin Shui, who had finally merged her soul and body with great difficulty, under Qin Hao's wild attack, her mind once again exploded, and became blank. She felt as if she was floating, and an indescribable feeling floated along with Qin Hao's overturning of the sea in her mouth, from dodging, to jerky response, and then to lingering endlessly, back and forth. After an unknown period of time, it seemed as if the two of them had forgotten about time and everything. Until the two of them slowly fell on the big rock, one on top of the other, and their breathing became heavy. When Qin Shui let out an alluring moan, Qin Hao, who had his eyes closed all this time, couldn't help but want to admire Qin Shui's intoxicated flirtatious style. But, as Qin Hao's eyes slowly opened, this guy suddenly became sluggish, and forgot to move, and his eyes turned into copper bells. Under the gentle sunlight, what kind of face was that? Her skin was whiter than snow, so delicate that it could be broken by the wind. Her eyebrows were slender, like willow leaves, like green smoke. Her long eyelashes flickered, emitting a soul-stirring beauty. Qin Hao suddenly got up from Qin Shui's delicate lips. Ah, and at this moment, Qin Shui also opened her eyes. Her beautiful face was filled with splendor, but the moment she opened her eyes, she screamed and suddenly touched her face. Cough cough. It's not me, it's definitely not me. Little Shui, I didn't take off your veil. Qin Hao stared at Qin Shui's soul-stirring little face, and said awkwardly. Although the black veil was completely unable to hide her appearance, but after really taking off the veil, the beauty that bloomed was completely incomparable to when she was wearing the veil. The visual conflict that it brought was even more out of Qin Hao's imagination. What made Qin Hao surprised was that not only did Qin Shui not flip out at him, she even trembled and touched her face. Her expression was filled with excitement, and even her voice was trembling. I fused. I really fused. Is this really real? Plop. Qin Hao directly fell to the ground. What the fuck is going on? What was fusion? What was true fusion? Qin Hao did not have the time to pay attention to it, but the words, "Is this really real?" had been said a few times. Could it be that she still did not wake up? I'm clearly still at the peak of the late stage of the incarnation realm, and I clearly haven't reached the creation realm, so how did I fuse? Qin Shui seemed to be extremely narcissistic as she stroked her little face and muttered to herself. Hey! Little Shui, what are you talking about? What fusion? Your illness is very serious, you have to treat it again. Ah. Don't come over. When she heard Qin Hao's words and saw that Qin Hao was about to pounce on her again, Qin Shui immediately jumped up. Her expression was nervous, and her face was red as she waved her hand to stop him. You're the one who's sick, I'm not sick. Not only am I not sick, but I'm fine, I'm really fine. You're probably beyond cure, right? Tell me the truth, or else, I'll have to treat you by force. Qin Hao really felt a headache coming on, and he felt as if he was a monk who was unable to make sense of the situation. Dream on, taking advantage of me while I'm not awake. Humph. Qin Shui's little face turned to the side, and she regained her former pride. Her beautiful eyes looked disdainfully at Qin Hao, and the aura around her suddenly rose. What surprised Qin Hao was that in just an instant, the space, which was originally extremely pure and contained all kinds of origin energy, actually condensed into lightning and spatial energy fluctuations above Qin Shui's head, and with a sizzling sound, it fused into her body at a terrifying speed that could be seen with the naked eye. What made Qin Hao even more surprised was that the aura emitted by Qin Shui was so strong that it made Qin Hao feel terrified. Ah. Little Shui, this is the secret on your body. Fused? Fused with your veil. Qin Hao looked at Qin Shui's proud expression, and asked with his eyes wide open. It's a secret. I can't tell you, the veil has fused. In the future, I don't need to wear it anymore. Qin Shui was like a peacock spreading its tail, and said proudly. Soon after, she withdrew her aura and said, Little brother, remember to call me Sister Shui in the future. Is this the 9 Nether Frost Pool? Such pure and majestic spiritual energy of heaven and earth, so many treasures. Little brother, why are you still in a daze? Why don't you accept it? Qin Shui deliberately dragged out the word, little brother, making Qin Hao feel like vomiting blood. Wasn't this girl's strength inexplicably raised by several levels? Her tail was raised. However, Qin Hao couldn't say anything. In terms of address, the two people had already agreed that the strong would be respected. Although the current Qin Shui's cultivation realm did not increase, her entire person's aura was God knows how many times stronger than before she entered. Qin Hao just judged from the aura and knew that it was basically an impossible thing for him to win Qin Shui. Especially in front of Qin Shui, he basically had no secrets, let alone talk about any unexpected trump card. The situation was compelling, what's the hurry? Nobody is snatching it either. The thing's in this place, let's not casually touch it for the time being. Why? This is the boundless continent's primordial space. It's the embryonic form of the boundless continent, and the entire boundless continent was also derived from it. Every blade of grass, every tree, every flower, and every rock here has traces of connection with the boundless continent. It's completely a fluke that we can enter. If we touch it carelessly, I'm afraid it will affect the entire boundless continent. How do you know? Is there still a need to ask? Of course it's a secret. However, if you call me Big Brother, I might consider whether I should tell you or not. Just pretend I didn't say anything. I have to have a good sleep. You can do whatever you want. Seeing Qin Shui frowning and glaring at him, Qin Hao directly said. After saying that, he directly laid down on the big rock that was as smooth as jade. Have a good sleep. Qin Shui stared at Qin Hao with wide eyes. Chapter 363. Eating, drinking, defecating, and sleeping was a necessity for ordinary people. But to cultivators, it was dispensable. Especially after reaching Qin Hao's realm, it was even more impossible to waste time on sleeping. When meditating and adjusting one's breathing, one could restore essence, energy, and spirit to the peak state. Most likely, only when one was injured and unconscious would one fall into the most primitive and inefficient sleeping state, but Qin Hao actually said that he wanted to sleep. Furthermore, he fell asleep the moment he laid down, and even had light snoring sounds. This appearance was clearly sleepy to the limit. Chen Shui pursed her lips and stared at Qin Hao, secretly thinking, I haven't asked him how long he was trapped in the barrier. But looking at this, it should be very long. Otherwise, with his cultivation, how could he not resist the invasion of sleepiness? But, why was he so energetic just now? Thinking of what Qin Hao did with her earlier, Chen Shui's face immediately flushed red. Where was the trace of arrogance on her face? Very clearly, this lass's expression, words, and so on earlier were all to cover up her shyness. Because she was not prepared at all and did not know how to face it. She was even more afraid that Qin Hao would take the next step. Staring blankly at Qin Hao, who was sleeping peacefully under the sunlight, Chen Shui walked towards the lakeside quietly. The clear and tranquil lake surface did not have the slightest ripple, like a mirror surface, clearly reflecting her figure. Spreading out her divine sense, Chen Shui could clearly feel the entire heaven and earth. Here, any item could be called a heaven and earth spiritual item if taken outside. Furthermore, it was the highest grade. If I take a bath in this lake, it will definitely be very comfortable. Forget it, what if I destroy the boundless world? Chen Shui stared at the reflection in the water, suppressing the desire in her heart. Although Qin Hao did not explain, she knew that what Qin Hao said was true. Carefully scrutinizing herself for a long time, Chen Shui turned her head to look at Qin Hao, who was sleeping soundly. After confirming that there was no danger in the entire space, she directly transformed into a wisp of cool breeze and disappeared from the lakeside. When she appeared again, she was already several hundred miles away under the mountain waterfall. There shouldn't be any problems here. What a beautiful cave. Chen Shui looked at the faint seven-colored light inside the waterfall. It was just like the water curtain cave. Of course, Chen Shui didn't know about the water curtain cave. The seven-colored light came from the cave covered by the waterfall. With a flash, Chen Shui passed through the waterfall and entered the cave. Inside the cave, the walls were filled with crystals of various colors. Each piece contained energy that shocked Chen Shui. Even though they hadn't been mined, Chen Shui was sure that every single piece of them contained energy that was much more boundless and pure than top-grade primal crystal stones. Moreover, they contained the profundities of elemental energy. I'll just casually mine a little and it'll be enough for my future cultivation. Chen Shui's heart swayed as she spoke. He couldn't wait to make a move. However, he could only hold it in. We'll talk about it when he wakes up. In any case, there's only the two of us here. No one can take him away from us. Thinking of this, Chen Shui cut off the greedy thoughts in her mind and quickly took off the black robe. Women naturally loved to be beautiful. If it was not necessary, she would never wear clothes that she did not like. Especially in front of the person he loved. This was something subconscious. Naturally, Chen Shui would not think of this. Quickly taking off all the clothes on her body, Chen Shui's perfect body was completely exposed. She lightly jumped into the clear pool of water in front of the cave. 2 months ago. In a tavern in Dragon Cliff City. Fourth brother, why are you being so secretive? Why did you call me here? It's a big matter. It might be a good thing. Otherwise, how would I dare to disturb second brother's cultivation? Ha! In a private room in the tavern, 2 old men with powerful auras met and spoke. Oh. What's the matter? Don't be anxious. Eldest brother and third brother are almost here. It won't be too late to talk about it when the 4 of us are here. Fuck. You're still keeping me in suspense. What's the big matter that even eldest brother and third brother are here? Don't tell me you're so bored that you want us to make a comeback. Make a comeback. Second brother is here too. Fourth brother, what the hell are you doing? At this moment, the door of the private room was pushed open. Another old man came in front of the 2 of them and spoke. This person was obviously third brother. Speak, what's the matter? A dignified voice rang in the ears of the 3 of them as soon as third brother sat down. The 3 of them were shocked at the same time. A figure appeared eerily on the main seat. Eldest brother. The three of them stood up respectfully at the same time and called out in a deep voice. Fourth brother, what's the matter? My cultivation has reached a critical juncture. I can only use my divine will to come. Yes, yes. Eldest brother, are you about to ascend to the human immortal stage? Ha! I guess so. There's only a 50% success rate. A 50% success rate. Eldest brother is amazing. The three of them were shocked when they heard eldest brother's words. This matter is very important. Let's work together to seal the room first. What? You said the 9 underworlds frost pool might open. Is that true? This. Eldest brother, I can't tell if it's true or not. You know that I'm the owner of this tavern. That's why I often receive news. The first time I heard a few cultivators say that they saw a young couple die in there, I didn't find it strange. After all, people often go there to see the 9 underworlds frost pool. Those with weak willpower might die in there. But in the next 3 months, there were several waves of cultivators who talked about it. Moreover, they all described a young couple wearing a black robe. Moreover, no one could clearly describe their appearance. They said that the fluctuations were very big. They could only clearly see that they were young men and women. This made me feel very strange. Once one fell into the barrier of the 9 underworld frost pond, one would either explode and die, or die like a dead object, waiting for one's energy to run out. It was impossible for them not to see clearly. Moreover, why were they always young men and women in black robes? This was too strange. So, I personally made a trip there. What was the situation? I only saw a black shadow. It seemed to be a couple wearing a black robe. The fluctuations were abnormally violent. What was even more shocking was that I couldn't clearly see the scenery in the 9 underworlds frost pool. Although it was only a small area of the black shadow, this situation was definitely abnormal. After a few minutes, I couldn't resist the temptation of the 9 underworlds frost pool. I temporarily left for a while. When I went there again, I still saw the same black shadow in the same place. This made me certain that during this period of time, everyone must have seen these two people. How is this possible? I also felt that it was impossible, but it was the truth. At that time, my shock was indescribable. You should know that even the experts above the human immortal realm couldn't be trapped in the barrier for such a long time. However, how could two young people be trapped in there for a few months without turning into ashes? Who else knows about this? No one. No one can look at that place for a long time. Moreover, if you don't pay attention, you won't be able to see such a small dot. Originally, those who saw it wouldn't take it seriously. I only discovered it after listening to several groups of people. When did you go there? Big brother asked in a deep voice. The three were obviously attracted by the topic of fourth brother. I went there 3 times. The last time was half a month ago. The black shadow is shaking more and more. Big brother, do you think that this is a sign that the barrier of the 9 underworlds frost pool is about to open? I can only stay there for 5 minutes. Any longer and I won't be able to resist rushing down. The 3 of you, act immediately. Guard the area within a few thousand miles of the 9 underworlds frost pool. Drive away any cultivators who want to come close. Don't let anyone know about this. My real body will come over right now. No matter whether it is a sign of opening or not, this situation is abnormal. If it really opens and we can enter it at the first moment, we will definitely have an unimaginable harvest. Not to mention human immortals, we can even reach earth immortals or heaven immortals. Go. Yes. After that, there were several groups of young experiencers who wanted to see the legendary 9 frozen pools one after another. However, before they could get close, they were blocked thousands of miles away by unknown experts. The 4 old men would occasionally appear in the sky above the 9 underworlds frost pool to observe the black shadow that was shaking more and more violently. Although the four of them had high cultivation, they couldn't hold on for more than a few minutes when facing the beckoning temptation of the 9 underworld's frost pool. After 2 months, when they checked again one day, they suddenly found that the black shadow had disappeared. The shaking of the barrier also didn't exist anymore. They couldn't see any abnormalities anymore. Through the invisible barrier, he stared at the 9 underworld's frost pond, but nothing had changed. It was as if nothing had happened. This made the four of them shocked. Did the 2 people in the black shadow enter it or turn into ashes? In their guess, the possibility of entering it was naturally higher. Although this was completely beyond their understanding. But it was the most likely. Because, if the 2 of them wanted to die, they would have died long ago. How could they hold on for more than half a year? How could they cause such a big shock? Therefore, the 4 of them didn't give up. Instead, they divided into 4 directions and waited in the space of thousands of miles around the 9 underworld's frost pool. Every few days, they would check it out. In the 9 underworld's frost pool. Hiss, the previous chapter's serial number was wrong. This chapter is corrected. The previous chapter can only be changed by the editor. Sorry. Chen Hao, who had fallen into a deep sleep on the big rock, didn't have any abnormalities at first. He really wanted to sleep. His highly strained nerves for more than 7 months had indeed reached the limit of collapse. After comforting Chen Shui, he couldn't take it anymore. Under the unbearable sleepiness, Chen Hao didn't even have the slightest interest in cultivation. He only wanted to sleep. After a good sleep, he would naturally recover. However, after he slept for 4 hours, the energy of heaven and earth around him began to surge at an astonishing speed. It turned into rays of 7-colored light, crazily converging between Chen Hao's eyebrows. At the same time, tentacles spread out in all directions, like a spider web. Chen Hao, who was wearing a blue dress and had already sat down beside Chen Hao and quietly stared at Chen Hao, widened her eyes in surprise. Come to vote for me. Chapter 364. How was this possible? Chen Shui could not believe what she was seeing. After nearly 4 hours, Chen Shui had a clearer understanding of the space. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth here was filled with the purest origin energy of various attributes. There was no need to deliberately refine and absorb it. Just breathing in and out would allow one to be in the peak state at all times. However, the energy that could be absorbed was from one's own comprehension. However, at this moment, Chen Hao, who seemed to be still in a deep sleep, seemed to have transcended the restrictions of the energy attribute and was absorbing the origin energy of all attributes. Just this alone was already extremely shocking, not to mention the speed of Chen Hao's absorption. Chen Shui clearly felt that with Chen Hao as the core, the energy of heaven and earth in the surrounding space seemed to have been sucked into a vacuum, causing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth nearby to be replenished crazily. Chen Shui stared at Chen Hao, who seemed to be still in a deep sleep, in shock. She did not even dare to breathe loudly. She did not know how Chen Hao did it, but she knew that Chen Hao must have entered a subtle state at this moment. However, in reality, Chen Hao did not enter a subtle state at all. At this moment, he was really in a deep sleep. He was in a deep sleep and did not have any consciousness. The one who had caused such a huge commotion was the mysterious existence. Chi Chi Chi. In Chen Hao's mind, an extremely mysterious rune hovered at the core of the space, absorbing all the origin energy of various attributes. As the amount of energy absorbed increased, the size of the rune continued to increase and the speed of its operation became faster and faster. The space in his mind expanded as the rune increased in size. Originally, there was not much space left after the spiritual spring was filled. However, after a few hours, the spiritual spring occupied less than half of the space and was still increasing slowly. The imprints of the 5 divine beasts and the treasure-hunting sword spirit were also under the control of the mysterious existence, respectively devouring the origin energy that matched their attributes. Standing in the spiritual spring, the lonely immortal fruit tree's branches and leaves were swaying. Its color was slowly changing as if it had undergone a mutation and was growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. 3 days later. The fluctuation of the energy of heaven and earth gradually weakened until it disappeared. The space in Chenhao's mind had increased by 5 times, reaching the limit of fusion between the mysterious existence and Chenhao. The energy contained in the spiritual spring was 100 times purer and denser than before. The immortal fruit tree had grown into a towering tree. Not only had its size and color changed tremendously, even the shape of its branches and leaves had changed drastically. Anyone who saw it would not be able to recognize it as the immortal fruit tree. The 7 colored flowers were evenly distributed among the lush leaves, and there were exactly 365 of them. At the same time, the marks of the 5 godly beasts and the treasure-hunting sword spirit had also increased by 10 times. Before it could merge with Chenhao again, it was already emitting a terrifying aura. Phew, so comfortable. It was only at this time that Chenhao, who was lying on his back with his head in his hands, woke up. He stretched, yawned, and sat up. His entire body was filled with energy like never before. In fact, he had already woken up 2 days ago. However, before the mysterious existence was done, he could only go back to sleep. Anyway, he didn't need to care about it, and it was rare for him to be lazy. Little brother, what's going on? Chen Shui, who was already sitting cross-legged beside Chenhao, could not wait to ask. However, her voice was trembling a little, and she was a little shy and embarrassed. What's going on? Little Shui, why is your face so red? Are you sick? This needs to be treated. Chenhao jumped in front of Chen Shui in a flash. His gaze circled around Chen Shui as he sized her up and said very seriously. It was naturally a very pleasant thing to see a beautiful woman when he opened his eyes. However, what surprised Chenhao was that Chen Shui did not dare to look at him at this moment. Instead, she turned her face to the side. Her face, neck, and even ears were flushed. Call me Sister Shui. You're the one who's sick. Don't mess around. Chen Shui's face turned even redder as she pretended to be angry. Of course, she knew what Chenhao meant by treating. She was cursing Chenhao in her heart. Did she want to blush? Wasn't it all because of you? It's fine to make such a big noise when you're sleeping, but what's the big deal about that? It's fine that you propped it up, but when you got up, why did you have to use your hand to press it so vulgarly in front of me? No matter what, I'm still your sister, am I not? At least avoid it, okay? Hee hee. Chenhao laughed. This guy was indeed a little baffled in his heart. He did not understand why Chen Shui was blushing. He did not realize his vulgar action at all. In fact, this was a normal thing for men, especially men who were full of vigor. In the legends, which pure man did not have a pillar supporting the sky? If you don't slap it to the side, how can you stand up? What are you laughing at, Lu? Seeing that Chenhao was still laughing, Chen Shui thought that this guy was doing it on purpose. However, she did not say the word rogue in the end. She changed the topic and said, what happened to you just now? You can actually absorb all the elemental energy. Could it be that you have comprehended it? No. But I can absorb it. Do you want to know the reason? Chenhao's lips curled into a devilish arc as he looked at Chen Shui and asked. No. Chen Shui said without thinking. Even if she thought, he would not say it. If not, she would raise a shameless condition. Why should she make him proud? Then you should hurry up and cultivate. In such a holy land of cultivation, you can't waste time. We can't trigger the heavenly punishment here. In other words, we can at most cultivate to the half-step essence soul realm. As for the things here, I can only do it myself. I can't touch them at all. You can't. This is the primordial space. You don't understand its profoundness at all. Everything is related to the boundless land. It's useless to be jealous. If you touch something you shouldn't, even we will be destroyed here. But don't worry, what's our relationship? What's mine will be yours. You just focus on cultivating and leave the rest to me. Alright. After watching Qin Shui disappear into the water curtain cave, Qin Hao's figure flashed and flew to the edge of the valley. Do a carpet search. Don't leave behind anything that can be taken away. Qin Hao said in his mind as he flew. Don't worry. Although there aren't many things here that can be moved, you won't be able to store them all if you collect them all. Moreover, the things here can only be placed in your brain domain. Otherwise, it's useless. The mysterious existence said, let's go and see if we can gather the materials for our fusion. If we can, with the help of the heaven and earth spirit Qi here, we won't need primordial crystal stones at all. At that time, I can increase your brain domain by another 10 times. Alright, then we'll do as you say. Under the guidance of the mysterious existence, Qin Hao scurried around the valley. He entered one cave after another and picked up countless types of ores. He picked them up and did not mind them. The gravel that casually rolled down could be exchanged for large amounts of primordial crystal stones in the outside world. The ground was filled with treasures, but after spending a total of 3 days and searching through the entire space, he still lacked 3 of the most important materials. This made Qin Hao incredibly gloomy. It was not just 3 materials that were missing, but it meant that he had lost 9/10 of his wealth. It's not even in the primordial space. It seems that these 3 materials can't be produced in the boundless world. But since there are records of them, they must have been obtained by Blessed Realm experts from the outer world. I can only go outside and try my luck at a large auction house. Damn it, those who are content will always be happy. Besides, it's not like I can't come here in the future. It's just a little troublesome. Let's do it this way. Okay. The mysterious existence also felt that it was a pity and replied. After that, for an entire month, Qin Hao and Qin Shui only met 3 times. They only met because Qin Shui could not help but come out to find Qin Hao. On the other hand, every time he saw Qin Hao, this fellow was like a trash collector. His eyes were sparkling as he looked around, and when he saw something that could be moved, he would excitedly rush over. He would only stop when the space in his mind was filled to the brim and could no longer hold anything. He followed Qin Shui to the water curtain cave and officially began to cultivate. But Qin Shui had nothing left to cultivate. This was because under such favorable conditions, even if he did not train himself in battle, he would not be able to unleash a powerful attack. He had successfully advanced to the peak of the immortal soul stage, and his inner yuan had been converted into the most original form of energy. Therefore, Qin Shui wandered around the space, comprehending the great Tao and nature, admiring the beautiful scenery as she waited for Qin Hao. According to Qin Shui's estimation, Qin Hao, who was at a lower level, would need at least 2 months to reach the peak of the primordial soul stage. And this was taking into account Qin Hao's abnormal strength. Phew! In the water curtain cave, Qin Hao exhaled softly and slowly opened his eyes. A smile naturally appeared at the corners of his mouth. As expected of the origin space, reaching the peak of the primordial soul stage in just over a month. How many primordial crystal stones and time would I need to consume in the outside world? Just this alone is enough to make up for the loss of primordial crystal stones. The only regret is that I can't cultivate any skills, nor can I raise the level of my sword will and attribute mystery. However, after Treasure Hunter and the 5 divine beasts recombined, the combat power of the 5 divine beasts has increased by 4 times. If I combine with them, my combat power will definitely increase by more than 10 times. I should be able to fight an expert of the late primordial soul stage, right? Qin Hao thought to himself and disappeared from the water curtain cave in a flash. You're done. Qin Shui, who was admiring the scenery, suddenly saw Qin Hao appear in front of her and said in surprise. So, little Shui, little Shui. Ha, it's about time, it's time to leave. Qin Hao smiled slightly and unscrupulously released his aura, which violently pressed on Qin Shui. His handsome face shone with a smug look. Calling her little Shui was not enough, and he even had to emphasize it again. Chen Shue's pretty face, which was originally a little surprised, suddenly became a little dissatisfied and angry under Chen Hao's aura. She snorted and said, "Little brother, let's have a big fight after we get out. Don't be so smug." "No problem. I guarantee that you'll be convinced. Come, be good and sleep. Remember, it's the deep sleep. Otherwise, a lot of energy will be wasted. You're not allowed to mess around. Don't worry, what's our relationship? Why would I mess around? Hurry, it's already been 10 months. It'll take at least a few months to get out of the barrier." Chen Hao said. "I'll update today. Everyone, don't wait. To be continued. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for it at Qidian. Com. Chapter 365. As Chen Hao spoke, he walked to Chen Shue's side and held her in his arms as they slowly rose into the air. Chen Shue symbolically twisted her small waist, but in the end, she still blushed and didn't resist. It couldn't be helped, this was a must. "Little Shue, I'm about to start. Take a deep breath, don't be too excited and get into the state as soon as possible. If my stored energy can't support us until we get out, it'll be over. Can't you wait for me to get into the state first?" Chen Shui looked at his face and hurriedly hid her face to the side. Her heartbeat and breathing became nervous uncontrollably. Of course, she knew what Chen Hao meant when he said he was about to start. But now that she was awake, how could she bear it? That won't do. Think about it, when we came in, we were able to become one because of luck. If we don't enter in the state, we'll have to waste a lot of time and energy to become one. So, the best way is for us to enter slowly in the state of being one. Don't be embarrassed, what's our relationship? Besides, we've already done it, what's there to be afraid of? Be good. Chen Hao reasoned and spoke the truth with a gentle and doting face. As he spoke, he didn't care about Chen Shue's tangled and flushed face. He gently turned Chen Shue's body around and hugged her. At the same time, his mouth was getting closer and closer to Chen Shue. He stretched out his head and caught Chen Shue, whose neck was tilted to the side, and pressed his lips on her pink and rosy cherry lips. Chen Shue slapped twice and struggled twice, yet in the end, she fell under Chen Hao's attacks that coexisted both forcefully and gently, and she became a docile lamb that lost the ability to think. Her entire body trembled as if she'd been electrocuted, and then she flew up once more. The speed of their ascension became slower and slower. Chen Hao kissed that smooth and sweet little mouth and felt that this was the most wonderful thing in the world, especially the feeling in his heart. One must know that this time was different from the previous treatment, because Chen Shue was awake. The faint fragrance of a virgin, the plump and elastic squeeze made the two of them hug tighter and tighter. Feeling the rich and wonderful feeling, Chen Hao's large hands uncontrollably started to wander around Chen Shue's graceful waist. But just as he moved, Chen Shue, who was stimulated, pressed Chen Hao's hand tightly. It's not messy yet, forget it, I can't continue. Chen Hao said in his heart, conflicted. Young and vigorous, although this brother really wanted to continue, but in the end, he didn't dare to. Fortunately, Chen Shue didn't completely lose consciousness, otherwise, if he took an inch and wanted a mile, he was afraid that he would lose control of himself. Shue, have you kissed enough? It's time to focus and get into the zone. Once we get out, you can kiss me however you want. Chen Hao's voice suddenly resounded in Chen Shue's mind. Although Chen Shue's natural reaction stopped Chen Hao from exploring her body, her flying state caused her to be dazed and immersed in the wonderful kiss. Her nimble and fragrant tongue was no longer jerky. Not only did it respond, it even took a little initiative. At this time, Chen Hao suddenly sent a voice transmission to her, causing her to be embarrassed and angry, and she almost spat out blood. He was obviously the one who took the initiative. Why am I not kissing enough? Chen Shue wanted to refute, but in the end, she didn't say anything to this fellow who seemed to be becoming more and more shameless and wretched. What could she say? No matter what she said, she would be taken advantage of by this fellow. Chen Shui waved the sword of reason and cut off the charming and gentle feeling in her mind. She forcefully calmed herself down and gradually restrained her mind. She used an entire 4 times the amount of time to barely enter a clear state of cultivation and started to recite the general outline of the Grand Tao. As they got closer and closer to the barrier, Chen Hao didn't dare to act recklessly. Although he was still kissing Chen Shui and hugging her tightly, his mind gradually adjusted to a clear state and sensed Chen Shui's aura. Once Chen Shui really entered the state, it would be the time they stepped into the barrier. After an entire hour, Chen Hao took a deep breath and slowly merged into the barrier with Chen Shui, who was in the state of unity. With the experience from when they entered, although the two of them felt as if they had sunk into a swamp the moment they entered and could no longer move, they did not suffer any injuries. As for Chen Hao, he immediately began to chant and comprehend. 10 days later. It's appeared again. When Chen Hao and Chen Shui entered the barrier for 10 days, an old man who came to check suddenly opened his eyes wide and said excitedly. This old man was the tavern owner who first discovered the abnormality. Originally, after the shock disappeared, there was no movement for a month. This made the eldest brother, who had cultivated to a critical moment, lose his patience and leave first. After 2 months, the second brother and the third brother also lost interest in wasting time and left one after another. Only the fourth brother, who didn't give up, was left. Of course, the most important reason was that he was close to here and had reached a bottleneck in his cultivation. In his entire life, if he didn't have a great opportunity, it would be impossible for him to break through again. Therefore, every 10 days to half a month, he would still come to check. Anyway, he was bored to death. When he came half a month ago, there was no movement. He didn't expect that this time, there would be a shock, and the magnitude of the shock was already very violent. He could only vaguely see 2 figures sticking together, but he couldn't see their faces or even their figures clearly. It must be the original 2 people. It must be. No, I must immediately inform the eldest brother and the others. After carefully observing for several minutes, when he was about to be unable to resist the call of the 9th Hellfrost Pool, the old man hissed and quickly flew into the distance. It turned out that when he discovered it, the reason why he informed the other 3 was that he didn't have the ability to monopolize it. To be able to enter the barrier for such a long time without dying and cause a shock, what kind of concept was that? Even if they were young, their cultivation wouldn't be weak. Now that they had entered and come out alive, they would definitely be stronger. Moreover, this 9th Hellfrost Pool couldn't be monitored continuously. Every time he looked at it, it would take a few days for it to truly recover. Otherwise, that summoning power would become stronger and stronger, and if he couldn't control himself, then it would be a tragedy. The old man directly pushed his speed to the limit and flew toward the nearest Dragon Cliff city. He was very clear that with such a strong shock, according to the extent of the previous shock and the time it took for them to disappear, these 2 people would come out in a few days. Their speed was definitely much faster than when they entered. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to reach such a level after not looking for it for only 15 days. 10 days, in just 10 days, the eldest brother, second brother, and third brother rushed over in a hurry, and the 4 of them arrived at the 9th Hellfrost Pool again without stopping. However, the 4th brother was violently beaten up. There was no other reason other than the fact that the entire 9th Hellfrost Pool was as tranquil as before. Moreover, when the 4th brother guessed that the people in the barrier might have broken the barrier and left these few days, the 4 of them used their powerful magical powers to split up and search a radius of nearly 10 million miles. However, they couldn't find any suspicious people and could only leave resentfully. Phew. That was close. The 4 of them simply didn't know that when they split up and started searching, at the edge of the barrier, Chen Hao and Chen Shui, who had merged with all things in the world, were shocked to the point of breaking out in cold sweat, and let out a sigh of relief at the same time. 20 days. With the experience of entering last time, coupled with the fact that Chen Hao's mind and soul strength had an astonishing increase, and more importantly, his true essence had become the purest origin energy. What surprised Chen Hao was that he actually used only 20 days to break through the barrier. However, when he came out, he didn't expect to encounter such a powerful expert. If Qin Hao and Qin Shui came out an hour later, they would definitely be miserable. Or if Qin Hao took advantage of Qin Shui a little longer and didn't wake her up, they would also be miserable. Similarly, if Qin Hao's soul perception wasn't so abnormal, and if the two of them didn't merge with all things in the world, they would also be miserable. Out of the 4 experts, 3 of them were at the peak of the advanced stage of the manifestation realm. Just one of the 3 of them was enough to make Qin Hao and Qin Shui unable to fight, let alone 3 of them, not to mention a half-step human immortal expert. Fortunately, this barrier concealed some of our aura, or we definitely wouldn't be able to hide from the elder with the highest cultivation. Qin Shui said with lingering fear. Even a half-step human immortal came out, our luck is really good. Let's get away from here first. As long as we don't meet any half-step human immortals, the other 3 won't be able to find us. Half a month later. 2 gusts of wind flew through the void as fast as lightning. Their speed was so fast that even a mid-stage manifestation realm expert couldn't compare. Both of their auras were extremely powerful, but their cultivation levels were at the half-step primordial soul realm. These 2 were Qin Hao and Qin Shui. In the beginning, the 2 of them had been in the state of merging with all things in the world, moving forward at a moderate speed. It wasn't until 5 days ago, when they were sure that the 4 experts wouldn't catch up with them, that they completely released their aura and raised their speed to the limit. They had already crossed a distance of tens of millions of miles. Xiao Shui, it's about time. We haven't met any cultivators within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles. This is it. Qin Hao stared at the barren mountains below, his eyes shining brightly. All right, then let's cultivate here for a while. Qin Shui said. Hiss. The 2 of them held hands and landed on a huge mountain peak. The night sky was clear, and the stars were shining brightly. Gusts of cool mountain wind carried with them the faint aura of demonic beasts from outside the domain. Perhaps it was because the spiritual energy in this space was not abundant, there weren't any powerful demonic beasts within a radius of tens of thousands of miles. The 2 of them didn't waste time looking for a cave. Instead, they released their energy, and in just a few minutes, they dug out a space with a radius of a few hundred feet on the huge mountain peak. After that, Qin Hao and Qin Shui used all their true essence to set up a powerful seal to protect the entire cave, making it their temporary residence. Chapter 366. During the day, the 2 of them would either fight in the space of 1,000 miles or split up to hunt extraterritorial beasts in the nearby tens of thousands of miles to increase their combat strength. Although the uniqueness of the 9 Nether Frost Pool allowed the 2 of them to reach the peak of the half-step primordial soul stage, their ultimate moves and battle techniques did not increase in their realms. If they were to directly trigger the heavenly punishment at this time, the results would not be good. Therefore, the 2 of them stopped and raised themselves to the peak of the half-step primordial soul stage in all aspects. After a month of this, Qin Shui continued to fight despite repeated setbacks. Moreover, she risked the danger of receiving Qin Hao's treatment every time. This made Qin Shui more and more sensitive and confused. Qin Hao was a hot-blooded man to begin with. Compared to a woman who couldn't help herself, he was even more ferocious. Every time he was treated, he would burn with lust. Countless sparks flew from the friction between the 2 of them. However, every time Qin Hao took the initiative and was about to be honest with her, Qin Shui would always be able to maintain her last shred of rationality and hug Qin Hao tightly, unable to move at all. However, Qin Hao was not very anxious. In his opinion, the time was not right yet. If he worked hard for a while more, success would naturally follow naturally. This was because he could feel that Qin Shui's line of defense was gradually collapsing. In fact, if he wanted to use force, he would succeed with half a push and half a push. It had to be said that this fellow had already reached the stage of unbearable. His heart was rippling and overflowing. If he continued to hold it in, he was afraid that he would suffer from internal injuries. Moreover, This seemed to have become the knot in his heart before he triggered the heavenly punishment. Although he knew that if he took this step, he would have to face his parents, Chen Shui's mother, and many other factors that might cause disharmony, he did not care. What gentle home, or hero's grave, in front of the knot in his heart, all became unimportant. The only thing to blame was that Chen Shui, who was wearing a blue dress and had lost her veil, was too alluring. Especially when the two of them were together all day long, even Lu Xiaohui would not be able to resist. Chi chi chi. 3 sword lights that were peerlessly fierce and indescribably formidable carried a wild aura of unsatisfied desire as they directly annihilated a demon beast at the intermediate stage of the Essence Soul Realm. Platinum Sky-Piercing Slash, consecutive ultimate moves. Phew. Without using the sword intent or the 5 divine beasts, I can barely defeat a primordial spirit intermediate stage primordial spirit realm demonic beasts. In the void, Chen Hao, whose clothes were in tatters, frowned deeply and thought to himself. Compared to a top genius cultivator, he only has the combat strength of someone who has just stepped into the primordial soul realm. If I were to fight with my full strength, I'm afraid I'll only be able to fight evenly with an early primordial spirit expert. What if I were to fight a monstrous genius from the central mainland? Chen Hao shook his head with a self-deprecating smile. When he was at the 9th frozen pond, he was still full of confidence that he would be able to contend with an expert at the late stage of the primordial soul realm after stepping into the half-step primordial soul realm. But now, it seemed that it was simply impossible. At the primordial soul realm, one's spirit and nascent soul would become one and would already possess a trace of indestructible aura. Without absolute power and suppression of the realm, even if one could kill the primordial soul realm, it would only be the physical body. The primordial soul realm, on the other hand, would be able to flee thousands of miles away in an instant. This also meant that even if Chen Hao faced an early primordial soul realm cultivator, he did not have the confidence to kill him. Unless it was an extremely unintelligent and fearless cultivator like the extraterrestrial soul realm cultivator, only then would it be possible. Secular Sword Principle, Sword Will, Physical Body, True Yuan, Platinum Sky-Piercing Slash. I've already reached my limit. Only my state of mind is a little lacking. What a knot in my heart. I didn't expect that I, Chen Hao, would also be caught in a knot in my heart. More or less, I was influenced by the secular sword principle. Chen Hao muttered to himself. During this period of time, the most important cultivation every night was to comprehend the secular sword principle. Under the various illusions, Chen Hao's temperament had already unknowingly undergone a huge change. If Xia Yuyu, Helian Wuzi, and Tan Tai Lian were here at this moment, they would probably not recognize Chen Hao. How was this still the Chen Hao who only had cultivation in his heart? Only Chen Hao, who was always with him, could imperceptibly accept the change in Chen Hao's personality. But as long as one compared before and after, one could still discover the huge change in Chen Hao. It was just that Chen Shui did not feel that it was sudden. Forget it. Tonight, just tonight, even if I have to use force, I have to untie this knot in my heart. Obviously, I can give in half-heartedly. If I wait, wouldn't I be worse than a beast? Chen Hao took a deep breath and said with his beast blood boiling. Just thinking about it made his dantian feel hot and dry. He directly turned into a stream of light and quickly flew towards his temporary residence thousands of miles away. Chen Shui possessed a magic treasure that her mother specially refined for her, which was the jade slip that was given to Chen Hao. As long as they were in the same space, even if they were separated by 100,000 miles, Chen Shui would be able to sense Chen Hao's existence. Therefore, during this period of time, although the two of them were training separately during the day, they would return to the cave every night to meditate together. Moreover, as long as Chen Shui could sense Chen Hao's aura, when Chen Hao returned, she would also return. The difference in time was absolutely not too great. But, Chen Hao, who had already made up his mind and excitedly returned to the vicinity of the cave, waited for an entire 2 hours. Within a radius of 3,000 miles, there was still not the slightest trace of Chen Shui's aura. 3,000 miles was the limit of Chen Hao's current soul perception. Why hasn't little Shui returned yet? The impatient Chen Hao secretly said in his heart, but he was not worried. After all, he had returned more than 2 hours early today. At this moment, the sky was still bright. But 4 hours had passed. When the sky was completely dark, Chen Shui still had not returned. This made Chen Hao unable to sit still. He hurriedly left a message in the cave and quickly disappeared into the night, feeling a little anxious in his heart. If she did not return at this time, there was only one possibility. She must have encountered danger, or fallen into some kind of predicament. Could it be that she met a powerful cultivator? Chen Hao thought to himself as he flew in the direction that Chen Shui left in at the fastest speed. It was rare for cultivators to appear in this area, but it was not extinct. In the past month or so, he had met a few groups, and they were all experts of the Essence Soul realm. That's unlikely. Even if it was an expert of the creation realm, as long as it was not a half-step human immortal, little Shui would be able to hide in time. How could she be trapped? The two of them had always been cautious in this training area that was beyond their realm. With their powerful soul perception, once they discovered cultivators approaching, they would hide and try their best not to get into trouble. And it was even more impossible for the demonic beasts within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles to trap Chen Shui. Then what was going on? Chen Hao could not figure it out. He could only frantically increase his speed and push his soul perception to the limit to capture the aura around him. The fire of desire in his heart had long been extinguished. In an hour, Chen Hao had flown tens of thousands of miles. But what made him more worried was that in this boundless wilderness, even if he knew the direction that Chen Shui went, it was undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. Moreover, Chen Hao flew very regularly, as if he was doing a carpet search. Within the range of his senses, he flew in An's shape, searching around the cave. He believed that as long as Chen Shui sensed his flight path, she would definitely know that he was looking for her. But as time passed, until late at night, there was still no trace of Chen Shui. Old God, can you use the jade slip to lock onto Chen Shui's position? In desperation, Chen Hao had to ask in his mind. Old God was the name that he defined for the mysterious existence. During this period of time, the increase of contact, it was really awkward to call him you. After I gather the materials and fuse them again, I should be able to, but not now. My ability is limited, damn it, when will I gather the materials? It's already so difficult to fuse with you in the incarnation realm. If it's in the primordial soul realm or the creation realm, how can I fuse with you? I can't do anything about that, the mysterious existence said speechlessly. He was so awesome. If it was so easy to fuse with him, wouldn't it be great? After cutting off the connection with his mind, Chen Hao frantically increased his limit again and again, and his expression became cold and lofty. At the same time, he was extremely depressed. Ever since he met Chen Shui, it was always Chen Shui who bumped into him or took the initiative to look for him. He did not know any way to directly contact Chen Shui, nor did he know where Chen Shui and her mother were. The only way to contact Chen Shui was through Lengyihan. But this was not the eastern continent. When Chen Hao was frantically searching for Chen Shui like a monkey that had eaten garlic, Chen Hao did not expect that above the void, two figures were staring at him from afar and following his footsteps. One of them was wearing a blue dress and had a graceful figure. Who else could it be but Chen Shui? But at this moment, Chen Shui's face was full of resentment. Her beautiful eyes were filled with sparkling tears as she grabbed the person beside her tightly. Master! I beg you, just tell him that I'm fine, okay? Silly girl, Master is doing this for your own good. Men are all the same. The easier it is to get something, the less they know how to cherish it. You also heard what he said. He only wants you because of the not in his heart and because of Tianfa. No, Master, he's just saying. That's definitely not his true intention, what do you know? Although Master has cut off a part of his memory. But I can't cut off everything. You are Master's daughter. How can Master not think for you? You're right to listen to Master. This kid is hiding a huge secret and has unlimited potential. How old is he? How many women does he already have? Those three have all entered the limitless immortal palace. Furthermore, they have already become the focus of nurturing. If you continue to follow him, even if you are lucky enough to truly fuse with it, you will still be overshadowed by his brilliance. In the end, you will become dispensable, especially after he obtains it. So you must go with Master. First, go to the middle continent. Master will arrange your future cultivation path. Go. Let him find you. Master, don't worry. When the time is right, Master will let you meet him. Go. Hiss. The void was suddenly torn apart. Immediately, Qin Shui was forcefully taken away by her master, who was also her mother. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.